Okay. I think I clicked the button correctly. I know it's coming up. Okay, great. It just took a minute. Welcome, one and all, to yet another episode of WIC TV. It's a cross-ideological space where we come together to talk about issues both political and cultural, from the silly to the serious, and we've got a show for you. We got one more person coming. Enemy Charlie will be here soon. She says she's running a couple minutes late, and that's fine. When she gets here, we'll pull her in. But today, we're going to be talking about a few polls that have been released of late, showing that Democratic approval ratings are in the toilet. 27%, the lowest they've been in my lifetime, has been released recently, right? In addition, we've seen party affiliation polls where, again, for the first time in a long time, the party affiliation and party identification with Republicans has exceeded that of Democrats. So the question for today and tomorrow, because we're going to talk about a similar topic tomorrow with another set of guests, is why is this happening? What about the Democratic Party is turning people off? How can Democrats change this? In what way are Republicans more appealing to the average voter and the American voter than Democrats are? All this and more. We're going to get into it. It should be fun. It should be a great discussion. Let's start with introductions. We're going to give it first to my man, J-Mac. Open us up. Let's see what you got to say. Go ahead.
Hey, Wick. Thanks for having me today. And it should be a fun conversation. As far as the Democratic approval is concerned, I kind of find myself in an interesting position, seeing that I have voted Democrat in the past. I've voted Republican. I'm registered independent. So I do my best to try to stay non-biased. Obviously, everyone has their biases, but I do think that does allot me a specific kind of perspective on everything. So I'm excited to talk to everybody here and get to know you guys, and hopefully we'll pass around the buck and see what blood is drawn.
Okay, thank you for being here. I really appreciate you. New York Shade, second time on my show. We didn't scare him off the first time. We'll see if we can do it this time. Go ahead, New York. Give us what you got.
Yeah, good to see you, Wake. Nice to meet everybody here who I haven't met yet. Gonna try and keep this under a minute, but ultimately the Democrat Party is failing the United States. The United States needs two competitive parties to pursue optimization. We know this is a core tenet of capitalism. Competition breeds excellence. The Democratic Party is in a self-inflicted doom spiral, allowing Republicans to pursue their initiatives unchecked. While I support the majority of those Republican initiatives today, this omnipotent rule is not sustainable in the long run. The Democrat Party approval rating is at historical lows, and the recent election saw outflows across nearly every demographic, with the exception of affluent liberal women. This is because the Democrats, seated under Obama and heavily expanded under Biden, embraced the idea of suicidal empathy, a core tenet for sheltered white women who, by the way, have been the largest beneficiaries of DEI by miles. Democrats prioritize empathy for certain groups, particularly minorities, immigrants, marginalized communities, to such an extent that it alienates the general voter base, leading to self-destructive political decisions. And as a result, they let millions of illegals pour over our borders and let violent criminals walk freely, both factors that are visible to the everyday electorate after noticing the hit on their wallets. Democrats cheer on violent protests, and yes, January 6th was also bad, applaud the arson of private American property and companies, inflate the cost of living under environmental speculation, celebrate the ideological sterilization of minors and the mentally ill, and threaten to defund the police. And instead of right-sizing now with a level-headed leader who says, this party has failed you, but here's a path forward, they platform pandering ideological clowns like Jasmine Crockett, who recently says she's so sick of white male tears on national television. When populist figures like Bernie Sanders get momentum, the Democrat elites castrate him. There is a permanent risk of failure for the Democratic Party, and it is the best interest of the United States to rectify this.
Okay. Great. Thank you for being here. Sorry to cut you off, but again, we're trying to be as brief as possible.
I had something much longer written.
I get you. I understand. And thank you for being here, and we'll get into it as we go. I'm just trying to get to the meat of the show, right? The discussion. Soy Pill, what you got?
Hey, it's me, the Soy Pill. Yeah, so Democrats have an amazing opportunity right now, which is to do literally anything. The Republican Party is fumbling, as we see in very many places. They're alienating their own voter base with policies that hurt them, whether that's layoffs in the government or fucking over farmers or tariffs or any of this stuff. It's getting pretty bad, and they're losing support where they shouldn't be. And despite this, Chuck Schumer and other people who are voting for their resolution are somehow just saying, well, we'll wait until they get turned on. And it's clearly not happening. They have this weird pie in the sky idea that at some point, all of these Republicans that have already been threatened with primaries from Elon Musk are going to see the error of their ways, even though it's been 8 years and they never do that. So the Democratic Party needs a resounding message. The leadership doesn't have it. I agree with Shade that AOC, Bernie actually have some sort of push and people actually show up to the rallies, and maybe we can get those guys to be the heads in some way, shape, or form. But right now, they just have no plan, and it's terrible, and no matter how bad the Republicans are. So I am advocating for a better Democratic Party to counter the baby politics coming from the right now.
Okay, well, we'll get into exactly what that means in the discussion. Thank you for being here. Next up, until Charlie arrives, which hopefully is soon, right? Shenandoah. What do you got for us?
Hi.
First time on the show. Don't fuck it up, okay?
Very first
We're all
time. Don't
judging
fuck it
you.
up.
Go ahead.
I'll do my absolute best. Thank you. I have a very simple statement to make. I think that the general media environment produces a situation where the Democrats naturally can't win 50% of the voter base. That's just how things are in a social media world where algorithms train people to hate people unlike you no matter what you believe or what they believe. And yet they still manage to fuck up and alienate at least, if not more, 50% of their own base. And the reason why is because the Democrat leaderships are cowards who are unwilling to fight this MAGA Republican threat to our country. And a lot of the Democrats who vote for them are ultimately dissatisfied with this weak and pathetic leadership. And I think it's pretty much that simple.
Okay, it's that simple. Well, we'll see if solving it is equally simple. So again, I'll just jump in here and chime in here. The problem I see it is that the Democrats are in the middle of a civil war. Okay, we have different parties and factions within the Democratic Party who are wrestling with who's going to get control. You have the AOCs, then you have the even more extreme portion of the left wing, who is the dark woke, if you want to label them something, who is advocating to firebomb Teslas, the do something crowd, right? And then you have the Chuck Schumers, the parliamentarians, and things like that. And then you have a whole host of people in between. Until the Democrats decide what they want to be, we're going to continue to lose. And we need
is anyone in the Democratic Party in power advocating for firebombing things?
Do you think that only the people who are in power matter when it comes to their advocacy?
No. I'm just curious what you meant.
So what I mean by that is there's a portion of the left, right?
Oh, sure. Okay.
Is,
Sorry, I didn't mean to push. I was just curious if you were.
No, I'm not talking about
I didn't know
leaders, right? But our last guest is here. Charlie, nice to see you.
I am so sorry for being late. My appointment ran a bit longer than I thought it would. Give me just 1 second.
Take your time. We're talking right now about why the Democratic Party is floundering and what, if anything, can be done to stop the bleeding. There is a ray of hope, okay? I'll give you the glimmer of hope. Last night, in a Pennsylvania district, my home state, right? A Trump plus 15 district, a district that voted for Trump with plus 15 points in the last election, flipped in a special election from red to blue. They ousted their Republican senator and appointed a Democratic senator. So there's that. But all the other metrics seem to be bad for Democrats right now. You got poll numbers that are just abysmal and all these things. So let's talk about it. Why do you think, Charlie? Give us your opening thoughts here. Everyone's had a turn. Let's give you a turn.
Opening thoughts. I think that the Dems have really failed to appeal to the working class and working class concerns. And I think that largely they have not promised change of any kind, but promised more of the same. And I think that, my goodness, didn't Harris think she hired someone that worked with Hillary Clinton on her campaign. I just think that people are kind of sick of like corporate Dem stuff, and they want to know that their concerns are being heard and addressed. And yeah, that's my thoughts.
Okay. Well, and that's with that, we were going to open up discussion, and let's see where we go. What do we think? Well, I keep hearing like the Democrats don't appeal to working concerns. Can anyone give me an example of what Democrats should run on? If you were in charge of the Democratic Party today, what would you do? What policy? What messaging would you use? Go ahead, anyone.
Can I give a few anecdotes?
Please.
As somebody, and obviously anecdotes aren't perfect data, but they are data nonetheless. And as somebody who kind of occupies a lot of spaces, I have kids, so I see a lot of the parents. We go to a lot of different events. Something that was kind of interesting was my wife and I was just on vacation over spring break, and we met tons of different couples from all over the country. Pennsylvania, you had someone from New York, all over the place. Some countries outside of the United States as well, Canada, a couple from France. Regardless, the thing that was really interesting to me and my wife was that politics hardly ever came up. And if it did, it was so nebulous and vague because your average person is not like anybody on this panel. They're not on Twitter. They're not going on debates. They are not really plugged in. They get their news from whatever news source that they prefer in their little silo, and that's all that they ever digest. So when the Democrats, Republicans do this too, by the way, but politically, when the Democrats zero in on these niche issues that don't really apply to the average household or family in the United States, you alienate a lot of the populace that just they
What's an example? Be specific. A niche issue.
Okay, so a niche issue that I think is when gender ideology started becoming more mainstream in the Democratic Party. When that became less of a microcosm of the constituents, and you had all these huge focuses on pride, kink. You had celebrations at the higher level of Democratic leadership. And I think to the average person, even those that are typically okay with LGBT stuff, there was a sense of kind of encroachment in the individual person's lives and families, especially when it comes to their kids.
Yeah, but that's totally a function of Republican news blowing it up and have nothing to do with the Democratic Party messaging. Like, if you're talking about what can the Democrats do, they didn't even campaign on trans issues whatsoever. And yet every single Trump ad was, oh, she's for they, them. Oh, look, they're putting trans people in the military. Like, I don't even think Democrats mentioned it once.
I'm not talking about 2024. This has been going on for a while. I can remember far back as like 2012.
Okay, but Democrats won in 2020, so why are you going back that far?
Because this systematically, when this stuff starts, there's a certain point, there's a certain line that if you push past, your average person it goes from, oh, I don't really care, or, oh yeah, that should be nice, gays should be allowed to marry, or yeah, if you're trans, maybe you should be able to have the medical blah, 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 to, okay, well now they're advertising this to children, or they're pushing it on children. The gender reaffirming or affirming care is a huge focus. And I don't buy that Democrats at no level are promoting or supporting this
I'd say at no level, but when you say a huge focus, what you're talking about is the only reason you're hearing about this is right-wing media who blow it up because it's their fear mongering.
That's not true. That's not true.
Absolutely true.
No, you're assuming. No. I started the whole preface of our conversation is I'm independent. I watch.
No, sure. But who are you hearing this from? From anecdotes, right? Like who's bringing this up to you? Is it people that watch Fox News? Is it people that like are watching?
Oh yeah, of course. People who are typically more concerned with it. But
no one who's watching CNN is or listening to David Pakman even. The only reason they would even know about gender affirming care is because David Pakman covers the crazy people blowing it up in the media in the first place. So like it's a non-issue.
Do you have kids? Question. Do you have children?
I don't, but would it matter?
Okay. It does matter because this is something that comes up in school board meetings, like currently, like in our own district.
I understand there's a lot of people talking about it. I'm not saying you're right. By the way, if this is this sounds like I'm coming adversarial. Sorry, if this is all of my rage
it's okay.
Right-wing party.
No
the fact that people are talking about it to the extent they are is because people are blowing it up and fear-mongering about it. This is an incredibly small issue. This affects very few people. But the reason you hear about it so much, the reason you hear about it at school board meetings, the reason you hear about it in the media is because it, like you said, there is a line somewhere in gender ideology that your average person might be like, hey, I'm not sure about that. Hey, should a trans woman be in women's sports? Maybe your random not keyed in person might not have the exact same position as a progressive. And because you can blow that up and because you can make that a wedge issue, that's why anyone's talking about it, period. So that's kind of.
I do want to get some more people in here. I know Charlie's
Sure,
been
of
wanting
course,
to get in. I know Shenandoah, and I know New York State wants to get in. So we're gonna go in that order. New York. I'm sorry. Charlie, New York, Shenandoah. That's the order we're gonna go in. Charlie, go ahead.
I'm very much inclined to agree with the soy pill here. If you talk to the like average liberal or centrist that isn't really looking at right-wing media, they don't hear or know anything about trans issues beyond like, yeah, they should have rights, and that's like about as much as you hear. The only time I hear anything in depth about, oh my god, they're transing the kids, they're doing transgender surgeries on illegal aliens in prison. That's all right wing, because trans issues are extremely niche. This is a very, very, very small, subsection of the population. It is right wing fear mongering. You do not hear the average American talking about these sorts of things unless they are extremely locked in. And I know this because I'm, LGBT myself. And so when these things come up with people, the average straight person does not have a lot to say. It's only the very online that do have a lot to say, and they're right wing.
New York Shade, you wanted to get in?
Yeah, I mean, my question would be, why would the right-wing media not hone in on this issue, even if it's particularly niche, just because it is extremely extreme and polarizing for the base? Like, this is political strategy 101. If you want to make the ground crumble under the opposite party, you zero in on something that is highly disputable and unpopular. And we know that, for example, trans men in women's sports is a hugely unpopular issue, including in the Democrat Party. So they hone in on it, and let's not pretend that the left wing media wouldn't do the same exact thing for any glaring hypocrisies that are within the Republican Party. This is just a clear double standard, and looking to blame the media instead of actually looking at their own policy and the politicians that they're putting forth in front of the public. We know Kamala Harris has supported extreme transgender ideology throughout her Senate career, and just because she erased that from her presidential run doesn't really matter.
Yeah, Shade, we're not contesting that there's no obvious reason for them to focus on this. You're 100% right. Like, of course they'll focus on this because it plays so well with your average Republican. Because you look at like the why did you vote for Trump polls, and a bunch of them say gender ideology, even though it has little to nothing to do with them. It doesn't affect their lives whatsoever. Yeah, but we're criticizing the party for blowing this ridiculous thing. And if there's something the Democrats are blowing up that's, people like to point at Donald Trump way back in 2016 and say, look, he made fun of this disabled reporter. And you can watch like compilations of him making fun of pretty much anyone, and he kind of does the same movements, he does the same voice, and it's actually, in my opinion, kind of questionable whether or not he was like literally mocking this guy's disability. That's the same kind of thing where I don't think Democrats have been doing that nearly as much anymore because they realize, wow, like there's a lot of big issues that need to happen. So,
are you trying to walk me into a Jasmine Crockett comment about her calling Governor Abbott hot
Oh,
wheels?
no. That was just an example that came up because of that Jasmine Crockett thing. But what I'm saying is, yeah, a Democratic Party thing could be, hey, let's blow up this ridiculous, potentially non-issue, or even if it is an issue, clearly not that important compared to a lot of these other things that are happening. But when I say trans ideology is being blown up for no good reason other than to win political points, that is a criticism of the Republican Party. They don't actually care about the effects. They care about playing it up for
what I'm hearing, just real quick, because again, I just want to remind everyone we're here to talk about like, okay, what's happening to the Democratic Party, but it seems to be, at least from J Mac's comments, New York Shade's comments, and then the responses here, and from Shenandoah's opening statements. I'm going to give you the mic in a second here, Shenandoah.
Thank you.
It's the right wing media has dominated the airwaves in such a way that Democrats are just failing. But I wonder if that's true. Like, certainly that plays a factor. Absolutely. But I'm just curious if any of you really, for Kamala, what was Kamala running on? Like, what was her strongest policy position that she ran on?
Her strongest policy position was, I'm going to do nothing different.
Shaking her head.
Was not really having one.
Yeah.
It was buses. It was school buses, wasn't it? Like, they're yellow and they're great.
I think her absolute strongest policy position was her housing position, because she was talking about like abundance in housing and deregulating housing. I think that was probably one of the really big things she was trying to run on. But
that or the child tax credit, definitely.
Yeah, that was another good one.
But
not a lot of people got messaged about that.
Yeah, because she never said, I mean, she did say, but she never pushed it the same way a Republican's going to be like, hey, she's trans, trans. Like, if they hammered it in, you notice the highest time she polled was directly after replacing Joe Biden, who couldn't finish a sentence, and when they called Republicans weird. And suddenly they realized, like, wait, if we play this dirty game of politics and call out the right, like they've been doing in the media for the past 8 years, maybe we can actually get some, like, vigor in this party. And then they stopped because they had to hone in Tim Walz. So I think Wick, it is the media market that the Democrats still don't know how to play. They're still
So do you
doing
think
the
we lost
high
because we didn't
ground
call him
bullshit.
weird enough?
No, come on. The
If I-
I
Democrats
disagree
didn't-
with that entirely, but I'll
If I
Yeah.
may.
Well, let's get it. Let's get it.
If
Let's give
Tim
it.
Walz had called
hold on,
Donald Trump
just-
a retard, I think he would have won.
Let's give it. Let's
I'll
give
do
it to
it.
Shenandoah. Go ahead.
I'll go on national TV right now. What I was
I'll
going to
say a
say
slur.
is, yeah, well, why not? I mean, I'll lose some money to the FCC, but whatever.
Sure, go ahead.
So I wanted to go back to the original claim that the main reason that Democrats lost is that they're over-focusing on these hyper niche issues. And I understand where you're coming from because, again, I think a lot of polls showed that the principal concerns of voters in this election were economic. But I don't really remember that much in Kamala's campaign where she really even touched on many cultural issues. They had to go back to the 2020 primaries in order to pull that stuff from her saying, we're going to give people in prison trans healthcare. They had pretty much almost nothing on her during the actual election. And instead, they focused a lot on the really shrill and loud element of the Democratic Party, which does advocate for these things, and then they generalize this element to the entirety of Democratic policy. And I find this maneuver really interesting because it doesn't happen to the Republicans. In fact, when we're talking about the Republicans and how people treat them, they don't even listen to their own leadership, let alone take seriously what their activist base says. But with the Democrats, even just some like random no-name blue-haired chick, I mean, she could be basically labeled as like the Democrat, even if she has absolutely no position of power within the government or the Democratic Party itself. And I think the reason this is because the Democrats have lost control of the media machine. They've ceded new media to the right, and legacy media, which they did used to have a lot of control over, has basically disintegrated. I mean, people just don't really watch that anymore. The only category of people who watch that are boomers, and boomers just tend to like Fox News.
Shenandoah, just
Yes.
to just push back against, that's all
Please.
well and good, but in order for us on the alternative media or the legacy media to be able to push a democratic policy, there has to fucking be one. And there's not.
Oh, of course.
There's not.
And
That's my
to be
problem.
clear-
There is no policy position. There is no real drive for any specific thing by our leadership, right? Like the let's take a look at the Hegseth stuff going on right now. What should be happening, right, is Schumer, Jeffries, all of our leadership should be calling on him nonstop to resign, should be pointing out that he broke, right? Regulations that he posted on Signal in this unsecured group chat, actual classified information, and they should be hammering that drum over and over and over. And to be clear, some of that is happening in these committees, right? I don't know if you've seen the hearings, but they're not doing that. But they can't just do that. They have to have a policy position that's positive as well. And I can't think of one. The fact that, just real quick, and I'll let you respond, right?
Yeah.
But just the fact that it took all of you so long to find anything that Kamala ran on, right? Is a problem.
It's not finding something that she ran on. It's finding something that she hammered in, right? So you hit the nail on the head, except for that last thing you said, Wick, is yes, this should be hammered like to death, right? But the very last thing you said is, but they need a policy. No, actually, I mean, yes, Democrats have and do need policies, but you look at the Trump campaign and how well they did, and it was close, but they won, and they didn't have policies. They had Project 2025, which was their real policies, and they disavowed it completely. And then when you actually asked them about their real policies, they just said, oh, make things better. I mean, we're putting out signs that said Kamala crime, Trump safety. Like, the policies were vague at best, and at worst, they were literally contradictions with the other things that they said. So to say that they need policies, no, it is the media landscape. The way you get over most people are the people that are uninformed, is hammering in a point that makes them upset, that makes them go vote for your party. Like, that seems to be the thing that really matters for the vast majority of votes. People are not informed.
I don't think for Democrats, like, I don't think that for left-leaning people, I mean, yes, the media game does matter a lot, but I don't think that the Dems can run it the way the Republicans do. Like, I did hear from a lot of more centrist, but more likely to vote Dem people that they didn't like Kamala having like Megan the Stallion come on stage. They didn't like Beyonce being there. Like, they was like, that's bread and circuses. We want to hear more concrete things, you know? So it's difficult because I think that we're dealing with a very different base.
I
Maybe
don't want to
people
assume,
that
but do you hang out with mostly smart people? Because that's not most people.
Can
I try to.
Well, a few people went in. Let's give it to J Mac, then let's give it to Shenandoah.
Sorry.
J Mac, Shenandoah, then New York.
I've written down like 5 things.
Yeah,
so
go
real
ahead.
quick, I'll go through them quickly. First and foremost, a few of the earlier framing of if you disagree or you focus on a lot of these niche issues, that automatically makes you right wing. That's utter bullshit. I know people that are not right wing or Republicans that talk about this stuff. Hell, there's prominent left wingers in social media. Brianna Wu's one of them. She talks about trans stuff all the time. She's not a right winger. She's not.
Example.
I'm sorry.
It's a bad example. I understand what you're saying, but I don't think you're right wing just for talking about this. I have people in my family that are incredibly progressive and they talk about it. What I'm saying is the reason these messages are pervasive is because of right wing media, not that you are only exclusively right if you oppose any sort of gender.
It was said earlier that if that's what you, fine, whatever. Regardless, moving on.
Well,
I did say that. I did say that. But by and large, what I'm saying is, in my experience, have I encountered left-leaning people that do talk about these things? Yes, but the frequency, outside of people who are, not transgender themselves, it is usually right. Sometimes
without having like access to that data, I can't say one way or the other. I'm just saying it's not an either all or none. Moving on. The next thing I have an issue with is earlier it was mentioned that there is a huge concerted effort of the right or Republicans who own the media apparatus or the mainstream messaging or even alternative messaging. Whereas I actually agree with that to an extent. If we go back, I mean, just not even that far. The culture primarily, especially things like Hollywood or even big business to a degree, I won't say they are Democrats, but they feigned being that because it was what was popular. For example, every single brand during June puts out their Pride Month thing. Doesn't mean they actually agree or whatever, but because that was what the whole marketing team said, hey, this is what popular, this is what people typically care about. And maybe at the time they did, generally speaking, that's what they put out there. So this notion that like the left is like this underdog who's never fought or has to keep fighting for the scraps because the right wing's so strong and powerful, that's never been true my entire adult life.
Can I clarify real quick? I'm not saying that the left wing does not have a. First of all, the left wing has a hegemonic, control over culture, right? Like most movies are made by left wingers. Most corporations are at least run by slightly left people, although they are like capitalists. Yeah. And you can see this kind of happening with the tech sector. It is shifting right only insofar as it benefits them financially, right? So the instant that it became unprofitable to be pro Pride Month, every single one of them would stop being pro Pride Month. But that is a very different part of the media sector than the people putting out the talking points for elections. All right, no one is going and voting for the Democratic Party because their fucking orange had a rainbow on it. No one is going and voting for the Democratic Party because they made the Little Mermaid black. People are voting for the Democratic Party because of what they hear in the media, what policies they think are going to matter, or what right-wing talking points have been thrown upon them and made them think that, oh God, this is going to destroy my country if my kid comes back and he doesn't have a wiener anymore. So that's what really matters.
I agree with you. That nobody's voting because the Little Mermaid's black, but that is a thing that is prevalent and pushed forward within that circle. It's something the media focuses on, especially from a left wing and right wing, both sides.
Mostly right wing.
Celebrated. You have. Okay, I reject
that. Would you bet me $1,000 that if I went and looked at who talked about the Black Little Mermaid more, would it be right wingers or left wingers?
When it was announced, I would definitely say on social media.
From now till back when it was first announced, yeah.
Typically,
they're still mad about it.
Typically, when those things are announced, it's announced as though it's to be celebrated. Mm-hmm. The lens, the microscope is on.
All right, and then after that,
because it gets rage clicks. It's cyclical. It's a rage cycle,
right.
Of course.
But I would probably put it at 80-20 right wing to left wing. Right? No one's talking about
80-20.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the Black Little Mermaid, 100%.
Yes. When Black Panther was released, the entire advertisement cycle for it was the fact that it was this huge black superhero. That was the whole focus of it. Mm-hmm. Most normie, yes, if you're online, sure, I'll hand it to you on Twitter or whatever, or even YouTube. You get all your stupid thumbnails of people raging at, I can't believe they made Snape black or whatever. But even the average person who sees that is like, What the hell? It's not logical. It's not consistent. You get people, I call them normies, who are not plugged in politically or to the whole culture war bullshit that still see this stuff and it resonates with them because that's what was being pushed. And you even see it, the turn, like you said, with corporations, and now Hollywood's following suit where they're realizing, oh, wait, this stuff isn't actually that. People don't really like this? Oh shit, we better change course. So you get these weird mishmashes of the previous messaging from a left-wing perspective or left-wing values, and then kind of mixed in with what I would consider to be a normie perspective of entertainment.
And you think this is, just to be clear, you think this is hurting Democrats?
I do.
Okay.
Yeah, I do. I think that's a large portion.
Yeah, and just real quick, just housekeeping. Just housekeeping. Keep the super chats coming. I'll read them on the top of the hour. When we get to 7 o'clock, I'll read all your super chats. Keep them coming in. Keep giving me money. Like, stream, subscribe to the stream, all the stream, not the scream. But I want to give it to New York Shade. I know he's been trying to get in here, and then I want to give it to Shenandoah, and then Charlie, and then we'll keep going.
Yeah, look, I think you could say that media is clearly a factor, but to say that it was the cause of the Democrats' monumental failure in the past election is intellectually lazy, and it's a complete lack of introspection altogether. The reason that the Democrats are failing right now is because they cannot sell their policy. If you look at exit polls from the 2024 election, the top two concerns were the economy and immigration, and traditionally Democrats and their policies more centered around social issues like healthcare, abortion, education. There was no alignment. Kamala was not strong on the economy. She was not strong on immigration. And this idea that Americans have to come to the 2024 election with a blank slate after Kamala was VP under Biden and letting millions of immigrants over the border, it's just asinine thinking. It is not grounded in reality. What Democrats need is strong leadership that is willing to accept that the Democrat Party of the past 4 to 8 years is a failure, and that there's a new way forward that is much more central or center left, akin to what a Bill Clinton Democrat was 10, 15 years ago.
This is super irrelevant. Are you saying Kamala?
Yeah, Kamala, whatever it is.
No, I just didn't know if you're doing like a. No,
no.
I'm
not memeing. I think she was just so unimpressive. I don't care to remember her name whatsoever.
Damn. Yeah. Donald Trump, am I right, guys? We fucking got him. Yeah, so I actually don't even disagree with a lot of what you just said. Like, yeah, I'm not. First of all, I'm not saying the election was lost simply because of right-wing media focus. Yeah, the Democrats have been pushing their message incredibly poorly, especially when your figurehead is a sundowning man, and then Kamala Harris, who gets 2 seconds of the ability to speak for herself, and then gets what sorry, I forgot your name. Charlie said of the Hillary Clinton campaign manager tactics of like, what if we appeal to the center right, which is clearly not working. But to say then that like, oh, we have to forget the past 48 years as if they didn't win the election.
It's
5 years ago.
Because you're a candidate that was historically one of the most extreme liberals in Congress, right? You're expecting the Americans to give people a blank slate just because they're running for re-election, and they're simply just not that dense.
Yeah, but you're operating under the premise that somehow the Biden policies from 2020 to 2024 were just so bad for everyone that they remember it at the polls and not, hey, we passed a lot of
immigration policy good.
I mean, that's debatable. I don't think it was the most amazing, but that is what a lot of people voted on. But if we look at like economic policies, our recovery was really good. We look at the way we tried to move chip industry back. Like, there's a lot of things that you can look at and be happy about. I think the reason most people don't even know about those things. And that's why I wanted to talk about the media so much, because the right wing does have a capitalization on, we don't need policies as long as we just hammer in a message and spread it to the most people. That's what's going to get their votes. Like, we don't have to talk about how we're going to raise or lower prices at the grocery store. And in fact, we won't do it once it happens. We just have to say we will. We don't have to talk about how we're going to fix the war on day one. We're just going to say we will, and then we won't. So like, this is clearly like a message. Like, every single person I talk to, every Trump supporter has some sort of answer for some policy, for some problem that's going on that is incredibly stupid and vague. And that was what was hammered into them for a whole year. And then you look at what the Democrats are saying. Oh, hey, like, we have this kind of complicated thing, or we don't have a very strong thing. It's a little limp-wristed, and that doesn't resonate with people.
Yeah, I do want to get more people in, right? And I know we're all eager to talk. We're all eager to get our shots in and things like that. I want to give it to Shenandoah, then Charlie, and then go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to build off what you were saying, Mr. Pill. So,
Mr. Pill. Yeah. Okay.
I actually do agree with what you're saying, because honestly, I don't even think that the Republicans have been really that great on the economy since Bush. And to be honest with you, I don't even think what Biden did was that terrible for the economy. I'm not saying it was perfect. I know that there was inflation. But the principal reason people latched on to inflation is such a big deal is because of the Republican media apparatus. And specifically, I wanted to get back to what you were saying, Mr. Cumac, about the left having a hegemonic control over Hollywood. I think the thing which currently drives conversation in this country is the alternative media sphere, which I really do think Republicans just have on fucking lock, like really way better than the Democrats do. I just think the Democrats are unfortunately where they have control is in legacy media, and nobody finds that
a question for
particularly
you,
important.
Shenandoah, on that.
Yes,
right?
please.
A question,
and if I
for
can
you.
answer it too, that'd be
Yeah,
nice.
no, I will let you. Do you?
Can I
It's,
jump in
it's
right
really
after?
simply, yeah, and you guys can jump in after and
Yeah.
give your thoughts. Should Kamala have gone on to Joe Rogan then?
I mean, honestly, I don't think it would have been that bad of an idea. I think I think Joe Rogan definitely would have been a bit biased against her, but
Wait.
I
Before
I
you
think
even
they
answer
made that
I got-
hard for
they,
her.
Yeah, they stonewalled her. They
Well,
purposely
There's
avoided letting her
Actually,
on.
I
There's
heard a
literally
different thing.
conflicting. Yeah, there's literally conflict. It's like he said, she said. So we don't know.
Yeah, 'cause
us
I
not on
heard-
the. We don't know.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
heard from
well,
Pod
do I
Save
trust the
America-
guy who?
I guess
Sorry.
the reason I'm asking the question, maybe we can get
Yeah.
beyond all the he said she said, is there is a current question within the Democratic Party on whether or not Democratic politicians should go on to right-wing shows. There are people who say no, don't go on to Joe Rogan, don't go on to Lex Friedman, don't go on to any of these podcasts because they're just biased and they're going to get you, right? And you shouldn't go on them. We should just stonewall them. And then there's another school of thought that thinks, oh, no, we need to fight in this. We need to fight on their turf. We need to go into their spaces and we need to get our message out there. Spoiler alert, I think we should go and fight. But a lot of people disagree with me. What do you think? Is my question.
No, I
Shenandoah.
actually agree
Hold
with
on.
you.
No, Shenandoah,
Sorry,
go ahead. Shenandoah.
Yeah, that was a question directed at me, and then I'll let you go, New York. I'll be
I'll let
quick.
everyone answer too. I want to hear everyone.
Yeah, I actually do agree. I think that they are biased, but I think, yeah, you should pretty much contest every contestable ground you could possibly get. My understanding of the events, and this might be factually wrong, but this is just what I understood, is that the people in charge of Kamala's messaging strategy basically just did not like Joe Rogan and so advised Kamala against it, and so she ultimately did not go on. They were actually open to going on, but ultimately it was the Democrat like messaging class, I guess you could call it, who essentially thought it was a bad idea. And I think like those kinds of people are like the real cause of why Democrats just suck so much in the media, because the Democratic Party keeps listening to these goddamn idiots who keep saying like, actually, I think if we just run more ads on MSNBC, we'll be okay. I don't think that's a good strategy. I think you need to build up a presence in alternative media and go on some alternative media that doesn't agree with you in order to reach those people and fight that ground. You don't want to just concede it. But no, that's the end of my sentence.
Yeah,
I
a
had another thing, but I
lot of
forgot it.
people went in on this one, so I want to give it to Charlie. There's New York Shade,
Yeah.
etc. Yeah.
I think like we're talking about Kamala Harris's policies and how someone said earlier that the concerns of the American people were economic, and then I think this was New York Shade then said Dems usually focus on culture things like healthcare and UBI. I think that those things are economic and in nature. Because it has to do with, where our money goes. And there was a Democratic candidate, as I'm sure we all recall, that really did push for the, universal single-payer healthcare, who was kind of shafted by the Dems on purpose. And I think despite the widespread popularity of Bernie Sanders' policies, proposed policies, for some reason, it's the neoliberal establishment, they won't run on it anymore. And so I really do think that at the upper, echelons, there needs to be some sort of change. And yes, also they need to go on right-wing media
Charlie,
talk shows.
do you think a Bernie candidate can win in America today?
Yes, I do. I still believe.
I don't. I disagree
don't.
with you. So, but sell me on it. Why? Why would Bernie succeed, despite him not being able to win any of the primaries?
I mean, I think that he was fucked by his own party, frankly. That's one of the conspiracies that I believe, is that the Dems fucked him on purpose. and wanted Clinton in there. But I truly do think, especially after this Doge nonsense, I think that things like, universal healthcare will become increasingly more popular, especially as we might lose Medicaid and Medicare. I think that people are going to become desperate, and maybe I have too much faith right now in people's abilities to, their like critical thinking skills. But I think it's quite possible.
Okay.
Just to
What
jump
the
in,
rest do you think? Go ahead.
I want to highlight something that Shannon Doe said earlier, not too long ago,
Please.
that I think is really important because it exemplifies what is wrong with the Democratic messaging. And Shannon Noah, you said that the only reason that Americans cared about inflation is because right-wing media put a spotlight on it. And that is the exact type of insulting, condescending, elitist verbiage that has been used by the Democratic establishment to insult the average American. Because what
Well,
you're
thank you. I am
implying,
quite condescending and elitist.
hold on, because what you're implying is that the average American cannot feel 22% gross inflation over a 4-year period with stagnant real growth, wage growth. It is just an insult. Like you're saying, oh, the only reason that people care about it is because the media highlighted it. But what actually is happening and why the messaging is so off the mark is that people are actually feeling it.
Yeah, but the problem is that everyone blows up inflation like, oh, it's Biden's fault for the shutdown. It's Biden's fault. It's America's fault, and not this was a worldwide phenomenon due to COVID and supply chain restrictions. And like all the countries that did not also print money and give it to people were feeling the same effects. And so, yeah, inflation's a problem. Yeah, people feel it. But why do people feel it, and who do they blame for it? I think that's kind of what he was alluding to. Not that, oh, inflation's not a big deal, even though, and
Yeah,
might I
exactly.
remind everyone that as Joe Biden was leaving office, we had already pretty much gotten inflation damn near down to like what 3 or 2%, like the target rates.
Yeah, and just to be clear, I did not say that inflation did not matter at all or that it was a good thing. I was just saying that I felt like they focused a lens on inflation specifically, and as Soy Pill said, it was a global problem that a lot of countries were suffering from, and that the United States was actually coming out relatively unscathed and was getting better. And a lot of that was a product of policies that were enacted during 2020. Like, a lot of the reason that inflation happened is because a lot of the ports were closed because the entire global economy shut down.
Right,
and like, what the hell is President
Biden
Biden supposed to do about that?
economy.
Republicans laid that at the feet of Biden, and that is a messaging thing. It's like that's what I'm saying. There's like an over focus on this flaw.
So the inflation had nothing to do with Biden pumping another trillion and a half into the economy when
Had
even
very
Larry
little to
Summers,
do with it. It didn't have nothing. It didn't have nothing to do with it.
Right, and it's supply chain issues, which by the way would be resolved with tariffs, but we can get into that another day.
Charlie, you want to say something?
Yeah, I can see that face. Charlie, you got to release that stress.
Not quite sure how tariffs would fix inflation.
That's not what I said. I said
The supply.
okay.
It would fix the supply chain.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you can put a tariff on the Suez Canal; they'll fix it faster and that sort of stuff.
Okay.
You know, if we have no
All right.
supply chain, it fixes the supply chain. That's actually
Yeah,
a really brilliant idea.
If no one's shipping goods,
but that
it will be
assumes-
fixed.
That's the assumption that the tariff is the be all end all, and that's where it stops with the policy.
If you produce everything within our borders, there are no supply chain issues.
Yeah, I don't know why we didn't just
with what
create factories
infrastructure?
in 1 year and then just start producing all the things we
where are
couldn't
the
import.
factories?
That's a crazy idea. I don't know why we didn't do that.
Well, we're getting a massive factory here in it's a chip producing factory in Arizona. It's one of the largest in the world, and that's going to be pretty cool. So
Yeah,
That will be
that's
cool,
a lot of
but it'll
jobs,
take
a lot of
time.
GDP.
3 or 4 years after they pass the bill to do that, and it's going to take a while to get it up and running. And I really like it. It's awesome
Yeah,
for doing that,
well,
but it is not what would have fixed the fucking.
They're going
supply
fast.
chain.
They already got those beams up.
Look, computer chips had nothing to do with the computer chip supply chains had nothing to do with the COVID inflation crisis.
It actually did have a little to do with it, but not. It was not the majority.
Maybe
Sure,
1 or 2%, whatever. But anyway, it just goes back to this tone deaf messaging that Democrats need to come to terms with what the actual middle American is facing, and this kind of elitist gender equality, like healthcare, abortion rights. It is just so far removed from the core needs. And
what is elitist about abortion rights?
Yeah, like
Or
Republicans
gender
don't care about
equality.
abortion rights.
I feel like those things were like very normal. Like everyone was like, "Cool, we like abortion," and it was only like weird religious extremists that were against it. No. Because listen,
Sure, go ahead.
I know
Let
I
Charlie
know
finish.
a lot of conservatives, and no one had said a goddamn thing about abortion for like 15 years. 15
Okay.
years. So I don't.
So that's
Wait, you're
been
pro-choice?
that's
Are you
been
an elitist?
that's been a top ticket issue. That's been a wedge issue for Republicans forever, for a very,
like
very long
50
time.
years. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, yes.
It's been pretty wedge for a while, even
Yeah.
though you can argue that it was drudged up
I don't
back then,
hear
but
anything.
not
I
as
do not-
recently.
And the issue with we're going to go back to the messaging with the Democrats. Here's another issue. So let's talk about the extremes. Let's talk about the niche and the spotlights. Okay. So a big issue that I have now, I happen to be very, very, I don't like saying pro-life, pro-choice. Like those are emotionally loaded terms, but for the sake of the conversation, I'm very pro-life. Okay. So let's talk about the extremes on both ends, right? You've got your extreme pro-life that are saying no abortion whatsoever, point of conception, blah, 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 blah. End of story. Then you've got the extremes on the left saying, hey man, up until that baby comes out that canal, it ain't a baby, get rid of it. Okay, those are the extremes. Now you have variations all the way in between those extremes, and you see this all over Europe too. The different type weeks or trimesters that they allow. Typically, most people, when you take polls, are about, I think it's like 22 weeks. It's like about 14 to 22 weeks is like the average for most people. Okay, you have now these are elected officials at this point. We're not just talking about pundits. You have elected officials that are not willing to say, even if it's a stupid thing, because nobody's going to do that. Just throw that aside. Are not willing to say, no, you shouldn't abort a baby in the ninth month of the first trimester. Like, that's a baby. Don't chop it up. Don't suck it out. No. You didn't have, I can't recall a single mainstream Democrat would ever say anything close to that. It was always, well, it was the answer that kind of brushed it to the side of like, well, it's not the government's position. It's like, well, no. Sometimes when it comes to human life, it does kind of become the government's issue. And that's what we're discussing. Is it a life?
They don't want to see like they're
that,
coming off on the negative side of ectopic pregnancies or any other medical emergency. So they don't want to say, no, we should never have an abortion at 9 months.
No.
Because they're worried
you're not going to have a
9-month
ectopic pregnancy. That's not how that works. The fetus doesn't develop.
But the thing is that. Sorry, you go ahead.
No, Charlie, don't let him talk over you. You gotta step on him, okay? Go ahead.
So the way that like very late term abortions work, they're not like pulling out a live baby and like slapping it down like a fucking fish. It's like the baby is dead inside of the mother, or will die very quickly. This is the reason that late term abortions happen. It's not
the reason they had the heart beat bill that Walz vetoed. I know. I've researched this extensively.
Okay.
Yeah, but you're making it sound like they wouldn't disavow it because they're like, yeah, fucking kill a 9-month-old.
I think that maybe.
But the problem is the messaging portion. When you won't, like I said, I prefaced how I said this. I said, regardless of how insane it might be, the sheer fact that you won't say, yeah, don't abort a baby in the third trimester. Or up to point of birth.
The thing is, Democrats have a lot more to lose than the right wing because abortion polls much better with Democrats. That's why midterms they got fucking destroyed when they got rid of Roe v. Wade. So it wouldn't benefit them to say that. It would only make them lose Democratic votes. Go ahead,
Charlie, you said we had to. Can you elaborate? We kind of have to.
I'm sorry, what did I say we had to?
We kind of have to. You went to JMac when he said, you guys won't even say don't abort a baby in the third trimester.
Birth,
and you said,
because that's, and again, I'm also maybe giving people too much credit, but like people who have like I don't know, basic understanding of, I guess, abortion or medicine in general, perhaps, do want to hear that if a mother is going to die or if a fetus is dead inside of someone,
of course,
that there would be, no laws preventing someone from surviving that.
Yeah. If the fetus is not viable, it should be removed. But viability being the term.
Guys, we're discussing if abortion is right or wrong, which is not the crux of this.
We're talking about messaging right now.
Yeah, we're talking about the messaging of it. Yeah,
right. And that's my point about it being an elitist topic in the 2024 election when the everyday American cared about the economy and immigration. And Kamala Harris centered a lot of her campaign around the topic of abortion, which is really just
half of America can.
Well, sure, but what I'm saying is that for the majority of America, the top two topics were the economy and immigration. And if the Democrats come in leading with abortion, that is just brushing aside the two priorities of most of the Americans. And that is what's missing with the messaging. Because
you're missing something there. It's not most of Americans. It's most of right-wingers. They care about the economy. Most Americans care about the economy.
No.
The border stuff is most of right-wingers.
The U.S. American population exit polls were the top two concerns for everybody was the economy and immigration. Point blank, period.
I'm gonna look it up, but you might be right.
But
Okay, fair enough.
Go ahead,
I
someone
still
else.
think abortion is probably pretty important to like maybe 50% of the population, though. I think that's like kind of a bread and butter issue for the people who might like,
It's pretty.
like
yeah.
that have
well,
to
well, like I
it is
said-
not as important
maybe.
as their
Well, we
wallet
did
and
mention-
personal safety.
You did mention,
Yeah.
I think one of us,
Well, that is personal
someone mentioned,
safety.
it might have been New
Yeah.
York Shade. If I'm getting it wrong on who mentioned this, please forgive me. It's you guys talk a lot. But someone mentioned that the only demographic that actually grew for Democrats were women, right? Women specifically. And I
Yeah, that
think
was New
that
York Shade.
perhaps one of the
White
reasons
women.
that might be is due to the abortion issue and the Roe v. Wade. But I don't know.
Oh,
I'd have to look
100%.
at
Okay, wait,
Yes.
Wick, I have to
Yeah.
admit wrong. The top two things for Kamala Harris voters were not the abortion. It was actually the state of democracy and the economy. So excuse me. Abortion was 3. So
It's fine.
my bad.
I guess, but this does bring up a question, right? And again, thank you for all the super chats. We'll get to them in about 10 minutes. Don't worry. The question I have, and this kind of ties into what JMac is saying, because I don't necessarily entirely disagree with JMac, but I don't entirely agree either, right? But I think that one of the things I have seen, and one of the concerns I've felt for a long time, is that we have an extreme core on the left who hold our politicians hostage. They can't say basic shit because if they say these just obvious truths, they're going to be excoriated, right? You can't
Like what?
have a left-winger who says, yeah, I'm really uncomfortable with abortions. I think it should be legal because it's not my choice, right? But I just don't like abortions. I think it gives me the ick. I do think that because of medical reasons and things like that, that women should have access to abortions, even if they're trimester. But I don't like that at
in
all.
what world,
Isn't
Wick,
this just,
has
a,
anyone?
isn't
Yeah,
this just a
what?
general problem that like polarization causes? Like, aren't the Republicans suffering from the same thing?
Yes,
too, where,
they
like, almost
are.
everybody-
Yes, they are.
I just don't know why.
And
it's,
that's
like,
a problem
like,
for everyone, right? For a lot of
I
reasons.
always just find it weird how it's like something can
Well, we're
affect
talking
both
about the Democrats
or the
today.
Republicans. It could be asymmetric. Well, yeah, of course, but like obviously, if something is a problem that both parties have, it theoretically shouldn't lead to like the failure of one party if they're both about equal in the same problem.
1.5% difference
well-
in vote in 3 states, we would have had Kamala Harris as a president. Let's not pretend
Whoa,
that
whoa!
this
It was a monumental defeat, Wick. I
let's
believe
not
was said
pretend this
earlier.
wasn't a fucking close election, right? Like we're talking
House,
50-50s.
Congress, the president, the presidential office, the Supreme Court, all Republican power. But okay, sure, it was. A
It
close
was
one.
monumental because you lost to Trump. That's why it was monumental.
Well,
Yeah,
okay,
Reagan fucking
that's
swept. Like
They only have a
like,
slim majority in Congress, I believe, right?
Yeah,
But
one of
also
the
what I was
Every
gonna say-
single
Only a
swing
slim
state.
majority.
Every single swing state.
landslide, guys.
And
But
Trump.
what I was gonna say is that yeah, I get what you're saying, and yes, it is a very close thing, but I just feel like if we're thinking logically, the reason that the Democrats lost can't be something that's shared by two parties unless one of the parties is getting a lot more messaging on that problem than the other party. Like, for example, if polarization is affecting both parties pretty significantly, and we know that they are, we have studies that show that, but polarization for the Democrats is getting a big spotlight shown on it, people are going to focus on that a lot more. Like, I know we're talking about the Democrats right now, but I just think the reason people think that the Democrats are specifically the ones being held hostage by their extremist faction, meanwhile, Trump is probably the most extreme Republican that's ever run for office and is holding pretty much the entire party.
They're all
hostage.
extremists too. They lost their civil war, right? They are extremists. But here's my statement.
Okay.
Here's my prediction. Okay, I'm going to make a prediction. I think predictions are important, so you can go back and look and say, hey, was he right? Was he wrong? Why was he right? Was he wrong?
Isn't
My
that your
prediction
Twitter bio?
specifically.
You were right about everything.
I was well, not everything. The 2022 I got
Everything.
wrong. I got wrong 2022. But everything else since 2016 I've been right on. But here we go. My prediction is the party that rejects its extremists first will win in a landslide.
Wick, we rejected our extremists in the election, and we got Liz Cheney and Dick Cheney up there. What when we lost? What are you talking
Hold
about?
on.
And
Do you think?
even right now,
Liz
Democrats
Cheney
are
up there is the
polling-
good thing?
Do you hold on? Do you think that moderates and centrists felt that Kamala pandered to them or tried to win or successfully tried to win them over in any single way?
I think some of them did, but I think it didn't work. I'm saying they tried.
Why
to,
didn't
and
it work? That you're right. It didn't work.
Because the
they may
media
have tried.
messaging of Kamala being this extreme communist is better on the right than Kamala saying, "Hey, actually, I'm not an extreme communist," which just doesn't.
The reason no one believed her
The
when
media had things to point to, though. That's the big issue. That whole thing with her talking about the gender reassignment for prisoners. The whole reason why the Trump team had that ad is because she said that.
Idiots would listen to it and say, "Wow, this is a big fucking policy."
I gotta say this.
It doesn't fucking matter.
Let
Are you gonna tell me how much it matters?
Let J-Man
tell me how
finish.
much
Go
it
ahead.
matters.
I'm sorry, Soy. I gotta say this because, and somewhat to you as well, Charlie. Look, if you are wanting to be in the game of persuading people, even if you are a 140 IQ genius, try to tone down the condescension. Because as soon as you start telling people they're stupid or they lack critical thinking, even if they do, even if the average IQ is 100, that means what did George Carlin say, then the rest are below that. Even if that's true, you are not convincing people by belittling them and making them feel
I'm not trying to convince
stupid.
these people right now, but I'm telling
Well, then
you.
you're not going to win. Then you're not going to win.
Well,
My
we're not
fucking
trying to win,
campaigning
like,
right now,
right
the
now.
election's up for 3 years. I'm saying that if you think that transgender surgery for that one prisoner is a big issue, you're a fucking moron. Yeah,
No.
I'm gonna say it.
The ad that Trump put out there apparently made a 3% swing in the final election results.
Yeah, I agree. Trump voters
literally
are
highlighting
overwhelmingly
the trans
insane.
issue and Kamala Harris's past position on it. This is again you asking the general public to be tone deaf and not do their due diligence on what has been said by these political figures. You're asking for everybody.
I'm asking the Democrats to come out and say,
it's absurd.
"Hey, who gives a fuck when you bring up a transgender surgeon prisoner?" But instead, they're like, "Look, well, actually," and they explain the real position, which is, I think that everyone should have health care regardless of what that is in a prison, and I think that's a perfectly fine position. But unfortunately, it doesn't poll well with people. They need to be like, "Hey, why the fuck are we talking about this? People are struggling out there. Why do you give a shit about some fucking prisoner and that's getting a surgery? Who gives a shit?" That's what they should be saying.
Because people care where their tax dollars go. That's
people care.
I also feel like New York Shade, like what you just said is basically a contradiction in terms. Like if people just do not care about like social issues like the trans stuff, why the hell would it cause a 3-point swing in Pennsylvania? And so like I don't understand. Like I don't understand how that makes any logic.
Because Republicans addressed the economy and immigration.
They did. I mean, honestly, I don't remember.
What was Trump's economy? What was Trump's economy? How is he going to fix the economy?
Concepts of a plans.
Yeah, exactly. He had concepts of a plan. And what is he doing?
No. That was in regards to healthcare. First of all, let's not generalize.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry that his policy positions on everything are that stupid.
The economic plan is to lower taxes. It is to implement tariffs to offset to generate the revenue to offset the loss of taxes.
How's that going right now?
So raise taxes.
Okay, whoa, hold on. That's important. Wait. Hold on. Soy, you just said, so you brought up the question, what are his policies? Then Shade presents them, and you say, well, how's it going? Look, we're not talking whether the policies are good or bad. You said he had none. But he did.
The policy
and people, for whatever reason...
Excuse me. He didn't say nothing. He said, I'm going to do tariffs to everything. And then they ask, how is that going to fix the economy? His is, well, we'll just get money back. And you look, and that's clearly not happening. Excuse me. You're right. He didn't say a word.
But
he didn't
he
just
has policies.
But that's,
you said he had no policies that he can't follow.
I'm sorry, we're playing the mega pedantic game. Would I say
he
doesn't have a policy? It's not, well, I don't know what I'm going to do. It's,
no, you disagree with the policy. You think it's stupid.
I'm going to fix it. I'm going to use tariff. Tariff is the thing I'm going to do. Instead of
he has policies. You think they're stupid, which is fine.
Okay, so would you agree that it's a policy if I go, I'm going to make the country better? Is that a policy?
Well, do you tell me how you're going to do it? Do you say I'm going
to fix it? I'm going to be very strong.
Are you saying I'm going to install tariffs on?
Well, people are scared of me. I mean, no. So Iran is scared of me. And Colombia is scared. I'm not saying that. I'm saying what I'm not saying.
Okay, one at a time.
Is this a policy? Am I telling you a policy right now? I'm going to go in there and I'm going to tell them, hey, you guys have to do this. That's what I'm going to do. That's my policy.
That's not what Trump did, though.
I'm not saying it's what it's saying. I'm saying is what I just said a policy.
You accuse me of not knowing what Trump's policy was.
Excuse me, is it a policy for me to go into a country and say, hey, I'm going to go in there and I'm going to be very firm and they're going to listen to me. That's how I'm going to fix it. Is that a policy?
No, but it is a policy to implement.
Is that a policy?
Which is exactly what
shit wasn't policies either because that's total bullshit.
The two policies
it works.
It's fucking ridiculous.
Whatever he said,
it's not a policy, guys.
Tariff
is not a policy. Okay.
So we're going to get to super chats in a second, but there are two positions that I remember Trump running on fairly strongly. The two I remember, and I followed the campaign fairly closely, was they were going to deport all the illegal immigrants. That was a policy that he ran on strongly, right? And that they were going to end the Ukraine war on day one, right? No more foreign aid to foreign countries, right? That was a policy that he put forward. I think those policies are bad, right? And we can see the execution, especially the immigration policy, is horrific, especially since a lot of the
Phenomenal.
immigrants they're trying to deport are here legally, right? Who have green cards, who have visas, who didn't come in here, jump the border, jump the fence, and things like that. And they're literally making up reasons, violating the First Amendment, and stripping them of their rights and due process in order to do this. And it's a horrific thing. But that is a policy he ran on. But let's get to super chats, and then we'll get back to the discussion. I got a few here, so let me get through them. Thank you for the super chats. Keep giving them to me. Give me your money. I will use it much more efficiently than the government. Okay. $5 from Joe the Mig. Stop siding with the 20% on every 80-20 issue. Problem solved. Thank you for $5. $10 from Psychonaut. The Dems are weak. Right now, they should be hammering all the screw-ups Right is doing, yet they are relatively quiet and complacent. Hashtag Schumer's. Thank you for the $10. $5 from Dej Nuts to say Daddy J-Mac. Based DOE hater. Thank you for that. $5 more from Dej Nuts. The Republicans made Kamala Harris.
What does he mean by the DOE?
Department of Education. $5 from Dej Nuts to say the Republican made Kamala Harris a public support, state-funded transition for prisoners with no magic. $2 from Dej Nuts to say they could just not push niche policies. $5 from Joe the Mick. Harris literally campaigned on gender-affirming care for prison inmates during her 2019 run. This isn't right-wing fear-mongering. $2 from Dej Nuts to say I glazed.
Campaigned on it. It was one of her platforms. You could go read on her website, I'm sure.
I glazed for Daddy J-Mac. $2 more. Kamala Toe. Thank you for that. $20 from Joe the Mick. Biden was terrible for the economy. Fiscal dominance worsened the size and duration of inflation. It wasn't picked up on by right-wing media. People felt the severity of the impact. How are you this unplugged from normies? $5 from Dej Nuts. Democrats lost Roe when protest chants went from safe, legal, and rare to shout your abortion. $5 from Better Methodist. Please move away from the abortion topic. Very sensitive for me. My girlfriend had an abortion because she wasn't sure the baby was hers. $1 from Dan Dietzo. Thank you for the $1. $2 from Dej Nuts to say Trump is an expert at beating women. $2 more to Dej Nuts to say, why aren't these retards voting for my policies? $20 from Slongy and Stew. Wick. We always enjoy your panels. However, we heard that JMax CTRGB will be demoed at DaveCon, Minnesota, and has 2 seats open. Wouldn't it be great if you guys came to fight Slongy and Stew? Wouldn't that be awesome? I'll tell you what, if JMac flies me out, I will play against whoever I want, whoever he wants me to play. $5 from Jeff Lewis to say for the whole panel. And we'll get to the discussion. We'll use this as a good jumping off point. What would your response be to a politician saying, abortion is ending babies, but sometimes it's better to end the baby? And we can, maybe that's a poor place to start, but we'll start there, and then I have a question. Go ahead.
Yeah, you're really contradicting that first super chat. Says, please stop talking about abortion.
Better Methodist is trolling.
It's a political conversation. It's a political issue. It's probably going to come up. It's just one of those things, you know.
Yeah,
Okay.
Are we responding
No, hold on.
Yeah.
No, I guess. Here, let me start
I
with
like
this.
babies.
Who do you guys have a favorite? Who should the Democratic Party run in 2028 as their front runner?
So early to say.
Too early to say?
Yeah. I think after midterms, we'll probably have a better idea of who would be a top contender.
What should their flagship platform be? What should their
Mark
flagship
Kelly
issue
would be my first guess, by the way. But...
Stephen A. Smith.
Flagship
he would
issue.
probably
Gonna
kind
go
of work.
centrist, center. I think that they're gonna keep pushing for,
What
more
should
centrist candidates,
what
which is going
should-
to fail.
Yeah, but what should their flagship issue be? Coming
I think
up.
the most dark woke person that's going to go out and call them like every slur in the book on
Waltz.
the debate stage is going to win. Waltz. No, Waltz is a little
Waltz.
too nice for me. He's getting there. But...
Yeah, I guess he wouldn't say he wouldn't call them
Waltz
slurs.
has no chance.
Is dark woke is that an actual phenomenon that's happening?
It is now.
It's just
Okay.
it's like an internet joke. It's an internet joke.
Okay.
You wait. It will no longer be an internet joke.
Dark,
I feel like
MAGA.
honestly, I actually feel like that would resonate with the quote unquote normies. It's just I think it was
kind of.
yeah.
It is
just,
kind
Pretty
of
lame.
yeah.
yeah.
I mean, like the
I-
Biden laserized things didn't. But
When
No,
Biden
that's
said,
too
"Will you
try-hard."
shut up?" on the debate stage, he polled
Yeah.
incredibly well because that's what everyone
Yeah.
is thinking.
Or
at
when
home.
he
no
told-
one is thinking,
listen here-
"Oh boy,
listen
I
here,
want to
fat."
talk to Dick
I
Cheney."
think
Yeah,
the
or
left
call that guy
used
fat.
to be
Exactly.
edgy
That was-
Listen here,
again.
fat.
I feel like the left used to be a bit edgy.
Yeah.
Like
Oh,
back
yeah.
when I was like a kid, it was edgy, and I feel
Oh,
like
yeah.
it's gone soft and corporate. And
I
think
just
we
wanna-
need to
I
bring
just-
back that edgy. We have to.
Yeah, I
we
just
have
want a
to get our
Democrat
word
who's, like,
again.
who looks
It
like
has
they
to
might
come
kill
back.
somebody. Like, I just want to, like, a guy who, like, maybe is in, like, prison for murder.
Do
Like,
you
I want
guys-
him to be my Democrat.
Yeah.
Do you guys remember that 2016 Democrat primary candidate? I forgot his name, but it was the one who talked about how he killed some guy and a soldier, like some
That's a
soldier in
good
a
guy.
pit with like a
could work.
grenade, and like that was his closing statement. It was just like his PTSD war story. Let's vote for
Retard.
that guy. That guy, yeah,
I'm
100%.
down. Yeah, I'll vote for that guy. I'll be that guy. I'll be.
I don't know if this wins. I don't know if let's just be really mean wins. I don't.
Why?
No, I mean,
why not?
prior
It's working for
experience
them.
is teaching me.
But
that
stop.
I'm
being mean-
tired of
Like,
playing nice.
Stop caring so much.
Yeah.
Like, stop being polite.
I think
Yeah.
to your
the
point,
landscape
Wick.
has changed.
I think to your point, Wick, and to kind of encompass everyone's opinions on this, I think that it's not foregoing the decorum so much, but it's appealing to the average person who just doesn't really care about the stuffy attitude that politicians typically exhibit. I think that's like meeting that sweet middle ground between those two kind of personalities.
Okay,
And,
but no,
another-
just to
another
push
thing
back
to-
on. Hold on. Just because Charlie Charlie and Shenandoah and Soy Pill, I think you're wrong, and I'll tell you why. Right? We have the data of the last
think you're
election, right? I understand, and we can
No,
we can
please.
present dueling data here, perhaps. But we have the data from the 2024 election. Leftists, people who identified as left-leaning, came out. Right? They showed up. They didn't stay home. You know who stayed home? The moderates, the centrists. Right? The people who were turned off by all the mudslinging and all that. They just stayed home.
Yeah, and now 83% of them are like disapprove of Trump's policies. So
Yes,
you know,
and they might because Trump is again horrifically they're incompetent. They all don't know what they're doing. They might in the future hold their nose and vote. But if we want to win them back, politeness, if you will, combative moderation, I think, is the best way to put it.
Yeah,
right?
I think you're
Combative
just
moderation.
conflating being like a centrist and being a fighter. I want a fighter who isn't necessarily like super far left on social issues because it's like the American people just don't want that right now. I just want somebody who's like a very militantly anti-Trump guy who has some fucking chutzpah, has some goddamn fire. They don't got to be mean, but they just got to be really firm and aggressive. Like one of the biggest problems with the Democrats is that people perceive them as weak. Like
yeah,
I think that's like one of the biggest
Tim Waltz
issues.
went on the VP stage and just like kowtowed and agreed with fucking JD Vance after calling him, oh, this is the end of democracy. But
Yeah, he
we
did poorly.
agree on a lot. And actually, this guy's not so bad. Like, yeah, that's feckless. It's lip-wristed. Get that guy the fuck out of there. Get someone in that's going to be like, fuck you
What
and your
about
stupid
Newsom?
policies and your lies. Newsom is podcasting with Steve Bannon, who's
Newsom's a
Nazi saluting
retard
on the fucking stage. So absolutely
Yeah,
not.
Newsom is
a
not
moron,
good.
but he's also. I think he's also like a sociopath.
Guys,
But I
no,
also
that's
think that he really hates Trump.
The reason the Democrats haven't been able to win is because they can no longer sell their policy. They need to provide some proof that their policy works. And you see two abject failures in California, for example, and in New York, where you're also dealing with an electoral reality that by 2030, there's going to lose representation. We're seeing mass outflows of residents from California and New York, and big ballooning in
that's because
states
it's
like
expensive.
Florida and Texas, right? Because of what kind of policy, right? So not only
Wait, why do you think it's expensive?
is it not expensive in California? Okay,
No, I live here. I'm paying a lot of money. I'm
It's
asking you why you think it's
expensive, yeah.
expensive.
It doesn't matter. It matters
Well,
who's running it right now and who's
Kind
been
of
administrating
matters, right? Because
this.
what
No, it
policies are
doesn't.
going to change that, right? And what policies are going to get voters to vote for the people who are going to change that or not
So
change it.
Phil,
You
a lot
said
of
there were like
a lot
two
of-
specific policies.
You can live in this imaginary reality where people don't align the Democrat Party with the rise in prices in California more so than any other state in the United
I'm not
States.
saying that. I'm not denying that. I'm
Here's
asking
the reality.
what
You are
policies there
losing
were.
hundreds of thousands of residents every single year. They're going to red states. They're
Why
beefing up the
do you
electoral
think
college position of those red
the
states, and it's
prices
going to make it even
are
harder
high?
for Democrats.
I can answer that question if you like. I'm
Thank
from
you, please.
California.
Regulation,
Hey, please
welfare
answer.
spending. Oh, come on. It's everything.
It's a lot of, I would say primarily, especially if we're talking about businesses or small businesses, a lot of it's regulatory and environmental measures that are being taken.
Yeah.
A lot
No,
of
you're
those
not-
things, I mean, just an example I can take, I went back to visit my buddies there like a few months ago, and we go to Safeway and we're checking out, and it's like, you got to pay for your bags. I'm like, what the fuck? Why do I got to pay for my bags? It's like, well,
Okay,
that's
wait,
what you
hold
got
on.
to
We're
do.
talking about high prices, not the 10-cent fucking bag
I
fee.
understand that, but I'm okay. But I'm saying that is indicative of the mindset of the policies being set. something so stupid that I don't see in any other state that I've been to.
Right. Well, okay, fair enough. Because you look at, we can't build this, apartment complex in San Francisco because the shade that it will cause on this playground is going to cause some sort of vitamin D deficiency. So that's going to drive the prices of housing up because we don't have another 10,000 units. That's what I'm talking about. It's a lack of housing.
I'm saying it's an indicative.
His main policy was building more housing. It was Kamala Harris. It was
Are the
deregulating
prices
housing. It
in
was Kamala Harris. It was
California-
one of her flagship policies.
Are the
That
prices
was
in
very,
California
very
because
popular
of
with
Democrats or
independents.
Republicans?
Mm-hmm.
What?
Are the rise in prices and the high cost of living in California, is that due because of Democrat governance or Republican governance? Simple question.
Yeah,
I mean, it's
Democrat,
because of
course.
high land value,
Okay.
because a lot of people want to live in California.
and because people
People
want
are
to
leaving,
because
though.
And this
People
is
are
where
leaving.
like
I know some
And
people are
many
leaving, but
important
there's
people are
industries
coming in,
are.
too.
That's
They're
why
not
it's
building.
expensive because a lot of money comes out of California. A lot of money is made here.
Well, hold on. Do you not agree with that, Shade? You know we're like the 5th largest like GDP in the world, right?
I completely understand that. What does that have to do with prices? The U.S.
Because
economy is
we-
the largest
because
in the
we-
world, and prices are
Because
Not the
because
highest
we
in the
pay
world.
people really well, because the gentrification drives prices up, because
hold
there's
on.
a lot of people who want to
and
be here
people are
right now.
leaving because of it.
Yes,
And people are coming,
You're
too.
correct. You're right. California has the largest GDP because of a lot of the industry that's there. You have Silicon Valley. You have, I mean, you used to have a huge, at least in the Bay Area, a lot of energy, manufacturing and whatnot. But a lot of those places, a lot of those companies, privately owned ones, are leaving because of a lot of the regulatory costs, a lot of the taxes being levied at larger corporations or larger groups. And so people, your business-minded people, I mean, from anecdotal experience, my grandfather, who's a CEO, he left California back in 2000, his company back in 2000, and I want to say 10. And we're talking multi-billion-dollar capital company, auto salvage auction company. Boom, just took it out, put it in Texas.
But they also
Okay.
go to they're moving to like isn't there concerns that Texas or certain like parts of Texas might, flip blue because of the influx of techies?
They were concerned
Like
about
Austin,
that before
right?
2024.
Oh, Austin's been blue
So
for
it's
a
not
while.
it's not like these like people are leaving California and they're like, I'm Republican now. These
No.
people, while they may be like, I mean, they're neo-libs, but they're still socially liberal.
I think you should
They're
remind
capitalists
yourself
is what
of
they
the margins of Florida
Yeah,
in
they're
Texas
capitalists.
2024.
What did you say?
I think you should consider the margins that Florida and Texas won the Trump vote by in 2024. It's not going to make a difference just because a couple of liberals moved there. But it is going to increase the Texas representation on the Electoral College map.
Is it a couple of liberals? I thought we were talking about mass exodus. You're like
Yeah.
talking out of both sides of your mouth.
It's 500,000 people have left California between 2022 and 2024 net.
Out of what, 40 million?
500,000? That's not a lot.
Net.
Oh, net? Okay, so yeah, that's like barely.
Yeah.
It sounds like we're replacing them pretty quickly. It's almost like it's a
Okay.
very
Okay, yeah,
desirable state to live in, and people like living here, and the prices are really high. 'cause
What
it's
is okay?
fucking awesome.
Let's get to
You're
this.
you're
Let's get to
delusional.
this.
California sucks. I'm sorry. I hate
yeah,
California.
I love
Let the
California.
record-
I left California and I was so sad.
I
Never
love
leave California.
I
I'm
love
dying here.
California. I hate its governance. It's that simple, and that's what most people are agreeing
Yeah,
with.
beautiful state. Beautiful state. Ugh.
I mean, I'm from Nevada, so
Beautiful
I
thing,
naturally hate California. Like just on like a
Okay.
like a like an
Regardless,
epic
okay,
level.
we're gonna move off California. California, we can have a conversation and a panel on why
Another
California
panel, another
sucks
time.
or why California is awesome another day.
I'll be there.
Let's go back to the Democrats and let's go back to the politics at play, right? There's been a conversation. I think we've kind of moved away from it about working class values. The working class, at least more and more and more, is moving away from the Dems and to the Republicans. Why? Why is this happening? Why do we think?
I think this is because honestly, in American society, the American working class has gotten so prosperous that they're switching to social issues and cultural identification being their principal concern instead of economic concerns. I mean, I'm not saying that this is like a complete thing, but I think, for example, we see that a lot of the union members voted Trump, even though Trump is a very explicitly anti-union guy, and Biden bailed out like the Teamsters union during his presidency. The reason that they did that is because blue collars are part of the cultural group that votes Republicans, not because it's rationally good for them and they're in making money, to be honest with you. And I just think that they're at that point where they can do that. They can afford those kinds of things.
So it's vibes and optics.
I mean, yeah, I think it's like I think it's principally vibes and optics. I think that's been taking off ever since social media has been like really going at it. I think that's been a big change.
Look, no, 100% correct. Look at the polling on the economy as soon as Trump wins the election and how it immediately flips, even though literally nothing has changed. It's just
exactly.
it's just vibes. It's just
exactly.
oh well, I think it's doing better now, and it wasn't.
And
the economy will get better. The current economy.
So are Americans stupid?
Democrats also.
No, that's not.
Democrats also
I don't think
became
Americans are
extremely
stupid. I
concerned
just think
about
they have different priorities.
inflation all of a sudden. But okay,
I love every American, and they're stupid.
Hold on.
Well, no. To Charlie's point about Americans being like, and the vibes and optics, that you're 100% correct, because perception is what sells. People's perception is basically what is going to push somebody into one camp or the other. So when we're talking about the vibes and optics game, if Trump doesn't deliver, and according to a lot of people, he's not going to. Guess what? Republicans are going to lose. They're going to get creamed in the midterms. However, if things do seem to have a upwards trajectory as far as the economy is concerned, as far as international relations or the border control, if those things seem to resonate in the positive, people, again, are going to vote in that direction. I mean, that's why we have ebb and flows in the first place. Republicans are in power, they suck, things get bad, and then it flips to the right. And then the right are in power, the left is in power, it sucks, they flip back, the pendulum swings. So it just depends on the actual things people will observe, whether or not they know the reasons why.
That's some samsara level shit, man. That's
I want to bring up
depressing shit.
This might pivot, and this is like kind of the whole thing of the panel. I mean, I know this started off as what are the Democrats doing wrong, but this is kind of what I was talking about in the beginning, which is like we're focused so hard on these like not niche, but like the minutia between one way of doing a policy and the other way of doing a policy. And meanwhile, the current administration is like torpedoing all of their credibility and proving every single person right who's ever said anything bad about them, about how incompetent and evil they are. And the media won't focus on it nearly as much as they should, and that's kind of, I think, the biggest issue is it doesn't matter how much of a fuck up they are. They can leak all this data. They can torpedo the economy. They can completely violate the First Amendment and deport legally residents.
When did the economy torpedo?
Well, okay, hold on. What do you mean by torpedo? What do I mean by torpedo? What do you think I mean?
You just said the economy torpedoed. Can you please explain how the economy has torpedoed under the month and a half under Trump so far?
You can look at like all of the index funds.
Inflation's down. Stock market has completely back up in the past week. Egg prices are in half.
Completely back up.
Wow. This guy, I want to live in this guy's fucking.
Yeah, I want to cut. Can I come?
Come on.
Can I put my portfolio in your stock market?
Yeah,
buddy?
fuck
Jesus
it.
Christ.
Google this. I don't know anything about stocks, but I think we could just look at it online.
Sure.
in
the past month,
we could do a
just some data for you because it's easy to look up. In the past month, the Dow Jones is down 978 points. So
4%.
Nice.
4%.
2.25%. But
okay, sorry.
Well, I'm not looking from year to date. If I look from year to date, it's
back to what my point was.
Save us.
Things are not particularly good right now, and we're doing a lot of.
Yeah, sorry. I'm sorry. I cut you off. My bad.
No, a lot of people are talking. Go ahead. Finish up.
I was just gonna say that, like, yeah, 2 point what? It was 2.5 or 2.2?
In the last month, 2.25%. Yeah.
2.25. Okay, that's why I was getting confused. 2.25% in 1 month. Yeah, that's a pretty significant drop. If that kept continuing, you would have a much smaller economy than when you started with. But also, that's not factoring in all the potential growth that's been destroyed by like the sheer instability of the Trump administration plus tariffs. Like, you got to think of how much higher it theoretically could be. GDP growth could be at like 3%, and now it's going to be in the negative, right? That's a lot. That's a big difference.
You're just trying to make a claim that the economy is down the shitter a month and a half in, and if you know a basic understanding of economics, trying to project that even 6 months out is absolutely absurd.
That's fair. I can't say for sure where it'll be in 6 months. I'm not even going to deny that.
I can't say for sure, but if it continues at this pace, I think I could be pretty damn confident that I'll be in the shitter, and your grandma's going to be begging on the street.
He might stop flip-flopping on the tariff.
Is 2% up, so.
Well, that's good.
I guess we'll reconvene.
We can now predict what's going to happen.
But
my overall point was, Wick, that there are so much fuck up and fuckery happening right now that is not being just hammered into the ground, like you said, and that is what is making the Democrats lose. The reason you're seeing these turnout crowds for Bernie and AOC is not because, I mean, they have good policies in my opinion, but I don't even know if these policies polled well with most Americans. I mean, Bernie did not win the primary, and we can talk about conspiracies and all that, but I think overall most people were a little skeptical of how left-wing he was, and yet the reason he draws these crowds is because he's like, hey, look at this fuckery. this is bullshit. These people are stealing from us. They are dismantling like the infrastructure that keeps us safe. They're destroying our soft power. Like, this is bad. We need to do something about it. And Chuck Schumer's like, oh, twiddly-dee, we're going to do a couple, fights in court. But as soon as they get 40% polling for approval rating, that's when we'll really go hard. Like, let's just do pretty much nothing till then. Like, no one, that's fucking feckless. No one cares. We want someone who's going to call out their bullshit. And that's what needs to happen right now. But if we spend all this time like, well, oh, should we appeal to this union or should we appeal to this thing? It's like, no, we should be hammering in how fucking bad things are for people because of what the Trump administration is doing right now.
Yeah, I think the main reason people love Bernie is because he's such a goddamn fighter, and also because he's like fairly normal-ish. One of the biggest problems that the Dems have is that they have a really hard time projecting relatability. Yeah, exactly. Like Gavin Newsom is a very
even the
good
Republicans.
Even the
Republicans.
Newsom is not, right, and this is a problem. Like,
yeah, I know.
I'll give you this. I'll give the Trump voters this. Trump's genuine. He doesn't like fucking hide who he is, right? He's just like,
he's genuine in a sense.
You
know what you're gonna get.
He's not honest. He's not honest. It's different, right? But he is genuine, right?
People do think that he's he's.
I don't think any politician's honest, but I want to go back to the point about Bernie Sanders. Is that okay? I want to kind of jump on that.
Okay.
So you mentioned something about Bernie Sanders being a fighter. He's got a spine, and he is very bombastic. You ever see him talk? He gets fired up. But there was a particular clip that was going around. I don't remember the exact year about him giving up his podium to, I don't remember if it was BLM or some protest.
Two BLM protesters that wanted to
So that to me right there, if instead of saying, well, no, you've got grievances, we're going to address them, but it's my turn to talk and I'm going to talk and tell you how. He doesn't. He stands back with his head down because he had to play into the identity politics that the left and Democrats, majority speaking, are been putting forward. And that was, it sucks because
to be fair, there was like international protest at the time. It was kind of a
those international
to be honest,
protests,
I would trust Bernie's instincts on that because of his history of
he knew the optics.
Anti-war protests. Yeah.
Of an old white man telling
the optics played to people who already agree with that. Anybody who might have been in the center or might have been vibing with what he was saying or kind of leading in that camp. I'm sorry.
A single person.
I know this is
a single independent said,
"Hey,
right. Wow,
not
that guy."
Anyone. Like, you're right. Not
I'm sorry. I know this is anecdotal.
But most independents don't vibe. Most independents do not. They just don't like the identity politics. They don't.
When
they just don't
a black woman is speaking, sit your white ass down.
Yeah, hold on.
Good.
Does anyone think identity politics is gonna win us the day going forward?
No, absolutely not.
No.
And I have significant issues with the ways in which I think identity politics have been weaponized in a very nefarious
Can you elaborate?
fashion.
Can you be specific?
Have you seen that comic of it's like a bunch of like people in Syria and there's an American plane dropping bombs on them and they go, oh no, wait, it's okay, a woman's doing it this time.
Or has
that's
a trans
kind of
flag on it.
Yeah, my issue with it is someone, I think it was J-Mac, brought up rainbow capitalism. I do have I take a lot of issue with I suppose the illusion of change, but no real change in circumstance. Because I would say that, I mean, I don't want to talk too much about like the protests in 2020, but I think that nothing really happened. I mean, a lot more police stations or police forces got more funding after that, but no real change was made.
Dollars in private property damage, but nothing happened. Okay.
She means political.
No, I mean material change.
Yeah, she's talking about change, like policy changes, I think.
Right?
Didn't police body cams kind of come out of that movement, or was that a little earlier?
No, they had body cams being pushed before that.
They already had body cams.
They pushed it a little, but not like it was not.
Well, no, the fact that they had body cams was one of the reasons we had some of the protests and the riots and things like that. Because they saw
if anything, ACAB hurt. ACAB hurt the justice reform, if anything, because it really started. It did, yeah. Because I mean, like I said earlier, I'm independent, so there's things that I have that are more left wing. Justice reform was a big one, especially in my early voting days. That was really pushed me in the leftward quadrant, as far as because I'm more libertarian minded. I think that a citizen's rights to a fair trial, like you said earlier, Wick. You have due process. All those are very important things, and the right now is basically kind of sweeping that conveniently in the aspect of deportations and illegal immigrants. So I think they're able to kind of message it away of like, well, they're not American citizens or whatever. But when it came to the ACAB movement, they did so much and you can say it was a vocal minority or whatever, but the fact is they were vocal and they were prominent. And people see that. Normal, average people see that. And it turns them off.
Yeah, this is what we were talking about before. I think the defund the police, I think the trans issues, these are things that if you pick the worst parts of either of these things and you blow them up in the media, which is a very good strategy, as Shade said, this polls very well with independents because they see, well, get rid of the police. How do we enforce laws? That's ridiculous. I'm not going to vote for anyone who even remotely supports that. Like, yeah, I agree with you. That's why we should not be promoting that sort of messaging specifically.
Yeah, you heard it. I keep
asking this, and I'm not getting too many answers, and maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm retarded. Maybe I don't listen really good. It's possible.
Hey, I said every American is. We all are. We all on this glorious day.
But what are the policies Democrats need to run on?
Okay, Wick, what Shenandoah and the Soy Pill have...
I'm serious.
Hold on. Okay, yeah, you've given me the only answer. Charlie, you've given me the only answer. Healthcare. That's fair. What healthcare in what way, though? Universal healthcare?
Yeah, universal single-payer healthcare.
Okay.
To completely cut out health insurance companies. If we want to talk about government waste, my God, subsidizing health insurance companies is actually far more expensive than, just funding healthcare. And again, you could go after like I think Japan has this model where. What did you say?
Oh, I was saying, sorry, that might just be out of the scope of this debate. Not trying to shut you down.
No, it's okay.
We're not going to debate healthcare, but like the policy position of universal healthcare.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, does anyone? What else? Is that it? Or will that carry us past
that was just off the top of my head.
No, that's
like fighting for living wages, like raising standard of living, building more housing, child tax credits, bringing like necessary industries back, such as like the chips thing. Like these are good policies. These are like what Biden did, and they're popular. I don't know if that's what you said, but they were popular policies. But they just don't hammer them in. I think the reason we're not talking about policy as much, Wick, is because, like I said, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how vague and stupid your policy is, because if you don't hammer in that it's the most important thing in the world, no one's going to give a shit. So I could have the best policy in the world. If I have bad media training and I don't describe it and say some nice catchy phrase to Americans, they won't care that I'm making their lives materially better.
But Soy Pill, you just said that the strategy going forward needs to go aggressive anti-Trump, which is essentially doubling down on the entire strategy over the past 4 years, which has
aggressively anti-Trump has been so limp-wristed, where it's
prosecuted
him. That's not a media training thing. That's this guy actually did crimes.
The media didn't back those
after
prosecutions. Okay.
No, I'm saying that the media did not focus on
just one more article, bro.
Went right.
Just one more article on how Trump's a fascist. Yeah. Just one more article, bro. We'll get him this time.
Go ask the average Democratic voter, why does Trump have a felony? And none of them will be able to fucking tell you. They're like, oh, because he fucked a porn star. Oh, because they don't fucking know, because the media doesn't describe it in a way that's actually resonating. You should be like, hey, Trump lied, people died. That's the stupid dumb phrase they said about Hillary Clinton and Benghazi, but that works. And if you do that and you hammer that in, if you actually give a palatable, parsable message to Democratic voters, they'll vote for you instead of, well, I don't know, it's kind of this weird thing. I don't know why there are 34 felonies. And he got impeached once or twice. I don't remember.
A housekeeping thing. J-Mac does have to leave us a little early, so I want to give him a chance to have closing thoughts and shout himself out. So I want to give him that space. We got another 30 minutes in us, gang, so hold on tight. But J-Mac does have to leave early. J-Mac, go ahead and tell people.
Yeah, no problem. It's about to get a lot quieter, too, because I won't be here. But to say, I appreciate all you guys and having the conversation. I honestly believe the best way to make both the right and left better is to have conversation with dissenting opinions. I mean, earlier we talked about politicians on the left getting on these shows and talking to people. I mean, you're not going to really expose yourself to the opposing side, because the opposing side's not left versus right to me. There is a huge bridge in between full of people who have a foot in both areas. And that's where I include myself. When people ask me, are you Republican or Democrat? I say, no, I'm independent. I've always been an independent. And so when it comes to the policies being presented to me, that's kind of how I vote. Now, obviously, everyone's different. We talked about how vibes and optics typically are what drive most people. And I do think there's a lot of truth to that, but I don't necessarily think that truth means people are stupid or uneducated or whatever the reason. The thing is, people are going to vote for the policies they feel impact them the most and the most directly. If you have kids, it's going to be things that impact kids. If you have a business, it's going to be business related policies and regulations. That's how people typically vote, because people don't have the time to read the 600-page bill or go through a person's entire history. They're just going to go by what news sources they trust and what pundits they trust, or just their friends and the things that they've been voting on their entire life. So just kind of in closing, I think that the Democrats do have a major messaging problem. I think primarily that's where it lies. whether they're niche, whether they're not important, it does seem there's a lot of these kind of red meat that they have in their hands. And even if they're not dangling it out, doesn't matter. A dog's going to smell it, and the Republicans smell it, and they're going to go after it every single time. Mm-hmm. To me, it's like, well, then just toss the red meat and don't even have it in your hands in the first place. That seems like the overall kind of winning strategy as far as the Democrats' position and their messaging goes.
Okay, well, thank you, J-Mac.
Oh, is he leaving right now?
I gotta take off. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So, J-Mac, thank you for joining us.
Say all the bad things. Say all the bad things after I leave.
No, I want to say I think I saw on Twitter that you play Magic the Gathering, so I think we'd get along. Although I saw you also have a Sulfum deck with Monocrypt in it, which makes you an objectively ontologically evil person. So, but yeah, no, we should hang out sometime.
At least I don't run Infect, right?
Yes.
God,
my wife wouldn't play with me anymore when I did. So.
Okay, J-Mac, always a pleasure. We'll see you later, buddy.
Likewise. Love you guys.
Bye.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Since he's going, I will step
Let's
in
bully Shade.
More, all right. No, I have some issues that you guys might have some issues with. So I will play J-Mac for the.
Let's bully Wick.
I do have a.
Go ahead,
Can I jump off of what J-Mac said a little bit? Because I do get what he means by, if the Republicans aren't jumping on the meat in your hands, just throw the meat. But I also think that, and I'm gonna speak as a fruitcake myself. I don't like the idea of the Democratic Party kind of abandoning the LGBT, because I think we're at a point now, kind of like a reactionary swing back in LGBT rights, where the bar is going to be moved constantly, and I think we're already seeing that a little bit, where it goes from like, well, just don't have trans women in sports, to, well, like, it's weird that, why are they legally allowed to not be the gender that they were assigned at birth, and now it's, I feel like, they're
talking about getting rid of Obergefell for sure. I mean,
yeah, and that's being talked about, and so I have a lot of anxiety about that, because, like, well, I'm not gonna fuck with a party that's going to get rid of my rights and the rights of people I care about. And I think that there are a lot of straight people who will probably feel the same and won't be, I think it looks almost weak to concede too much. It looks weak.
But if the Democrats were to abandon heavy emphasis on the LGBT topic, would you hold on? Would you then be inclined to vote Republican?
No, I just wouldn't vote.
Exactly, right. So it proves that if the Democrats put in less emphasis on the LGBT, particularly the transgender issue, which was a catalyst for this election, if they abandoned that, it's not going to really impact their voter base. The issue is, how do we get more voters within our consortium? And you do that by appealing to more centrist positions.
I don't think that they tried that. They tried that. And they tried to appeal to more centrist people. Kamala did, Harris did. That was like towards the end.
Okay, but hold on, just real quick, Shade, just real quick, Shade. Because I want to talk to this, because I think, Charlie, this line that, though they tried to, they may have tried, but they tried in a way that 20-year-old college kids who have tacked onto the campaign thought would appeal to centrists. It showed a lack of connection to what actual moderates, center-left, center-right folks, centrist folks actually want to hear about and actually care about. It's they took a caricature that they had in their heads, and they appealed to that caricature, and they didn't realize that was just a caricature. They had made up a person, made up a guy to try to appeal to, and that guy may have existed in onesies and twosies, but the broad portion of the moderates just was not impressed.
Can you be more specific? I'm actually very confused. So you're saying there are 20-year-old like electoral advisors that
the interns and shit like that. The ones who
it was Clinton's. They took on Clinton's team, right?
Okay. There's a few different factors at play.
It's a pretty big coalition.
Right? There's a lot of them. But one of the problems that again, having talked to people who have worked on campaigns, right? Who have worked with electoral canvassing, campaigning, messaging, etc. They tend to be young, affluent, college educated, ranging from about 20 to 30 years old. Okay? Yes, some of them were grabbed on from the Clinton campaign. That's true. But the rank and files, right? The people making a lot of the advisements are young, affluent, 20 to 30
Kamala is
college
brat.
educated.
That's what you're talking about.
That too, right?
That
too.
worked. Okay.
Did
I
it work?
feel that worked. I thought that was hilarious. I loved it.
It
You're not
appealed.
it worked
It
on me.
appealed
That's just
to.
It
something
worked
I'm telling
on
us.
me.
The choir
Are you a
loved
woman
it.
between
It's
21
true.
and 30?
The choir loved it. The choir loved it. It was great for the choir, and that there's a place for that. I'm not saying that there's no place for that. You gotta preach to the choir once in a while. You gotta gin up the bass, etc. That's great.
Well, I
stuff.
hated Harris, but so that kind of made me warm to her slightly, which I know is I was just calling people who optics only are stupid. But I was like, Kamala's brat, whatever.
Yeah, no, it was.
Kind of,
That's
that is
fun.
kind of what I'm saying, right? You get a good slogan, and
But
then suddenly you
And it's like,
energize the base, and you take
So one
nothing
of the
about
guys I'm
policy.
having on
I still
tomorrow.
think we should have
Hold on, just real quick, if I may finish my point here, and I'm sorry I'm being a little long-winded here. I'll try to be a little more concise. But one of the gentlemen I'm having on tomorrow, right? We're going to be talking about the same subject. Is a man by the name of Tracing Woodgrains. He's a big guy on Twitter, okay, and he's pretty centrist. He's pretty moderate. And I talked to him right after the election about this too, and he made a whole essay about he was a centrist. He is a centrist. He's a furry who worked for the Bar Pod Report, right? Like he's just this crazy guy. He's a really nice guy. But he has very kind of right-leaning views, some left-leaning views. He opposed Trump. He didn't like Trump.
You said he was a furry?
Yes.
He's a furry and he's a centrist?
Yes.
How are you a furry and not opposed to the
That's
party that wants to
crazy.
throw you in a fucking camp?
There's a lot of Nazi furries. There's a lot of right-wing.
I know.
There are.
Yeah.
I know, but why? Like how okay, well,
I don't.
I'll super
look,
chat him
I
tomorrow.
can't pretend to answer this question. I have no idea. But
Valid
he
question.
said, right, and he said publicly, right, that all the messaging that was going towards centrists, the messaging that they were trying to appeal to the moderates with, felt false. It rang hollow. It felt like it was generated by a machine, right? A machine that turned out what they thought a centrists would like. And I've heard this from quite a few people, right? So when we talk about appealing to centrists, you can do that poorly or you can do that well. I think the Kamala campaign did it poorly. And I also talked about this earlier with the Newsom and with Bernie and with Trump. The reason Newsom sucks, Bernie doesn't, and Trump doesn't, is because Bernie and Trump have followings because they're genuine. Okay? We need more genuine politicians. We don't have that in the Democratic Party, and that sucks. We need more
That sounds like a
genuine
messaging
politicians.
thing.
I agree with
Yeah,
that.
that's just,
I agree, though.
You're agreeing with what we've been saying the whole time, which is
Yeah,
it
we're ju-
really doesn't matter nearly as much as the policy is how much the voter thinks they're being genuine and whether or not if they have a good slogan that they're like, oh, okay, yeah, that's like, Brat, that's the album I listen to. That's like a thing I know, right? Like it works. It just works. And so like, Bernie has like not me, us, which is like a very good slogan. And then Kamala came out with what? Like, we will not go
We're
back
not
to
going
some
back,
lame
which
fuck-
is a
yeah,
weird.
like whatever.
It was
like,
weird.
who
It was
gives
sad.
a shit?
I mean,
So-
honestly, I think Bernie could just say that like every man is going to be turned homosexual in my regime, and he'd probably poll better just because he's like authentic. Like that's actually like I genuinely think that's like that's all it takes, man. He could do it. Yeah.
It's a
literally
combination
made
of things,
a
and this is
joke
why
about
this
that.
conversation
I'm
is
not
hard.
saying it's literally all media. Like policy does have an impact. We're just saying that like because of the media environment, it has become like a greater and greater share of optics because frankly people just like it's hard to get good information these days, and there's like social media does create media bubbles in ways that previous media kind of doesn't.
Okay, $5 from. I'll get to some of these super chats to let you guys respond. $5 from Infallible Foul to say Trump won, and not a single time did he make an appeal to the center. Stop being a fool. Don't take advice from people who want you to lose. So first of all, Trump ran far away from the extremists in his party on abortion, right? A lot of the people on his party were pushing for, we just need to make abortion illegal, and he ran from that. So to talk about him not pushing to the center, right, or not like making appeals.
It's relative,
to the
Wick.
center,
They're asking the
simply not
Democrats
true.
to go center, and he's going slightly left of right, which is still very right. He's not
But
appealing to
the
the centrist.
position
Yeah.
that the country is in is center. It's center rightish, actually.
Right now, the people in power or the
No,
people,
the
average
just the
voter
electorate.
Average voter, absolutely.
is center rightist.
Well, it's
yeah,
center.
okay.
It's center, and we can debate whether it's more center left or center right, but it's very moderate. It's very center. That's what
Actually,
the
yeah, I do
electorate's
agree
at.
with you, Wick. I
think
saw a poll the other day that basically said that like Americans thought that Kamala was actually closer to the center, but they were just feeling a little bit extra center right this election. So on a relative scale, they were closer to Trump, despite like they actually believed that Kamala was closer to the center than Trump was. I could send it to you. I actually found it the other day.
Sure.
Something we haven't talked about yet is kind of the personnel issue that the Democrat Party has. My hypothesis is that if the Democrats put forward somebody in 2024 on the same exact platform as Kamala Harris, without the kind of disease baggage and association that Kamala Harris had to the Biden administration, the race would have been a lot tighter. The problem with, and Wick alluded to this, is this authenticity program. And sure, you have Bernie Sanders, he's going to be 86 in 4 years. Is he going to be kind of the same Bernie Sanders as we've seen today? Maybe, I don't know. Trump is old, right? I don't think there's any denying that. But then you look at the rest of the roster and you think, who can I put forward that isn't, again, associated with this kind of cancerous baggage that has been associated with the Biden and Clinton administrations or campaigns. And that's where I really struggle. Like, where are you guys going to find these people? And are there any people from your point of view that could really pursue that and bring the Democratic Party back to relevancy? I'm not convinced there's anyone.
Well, the reason I said I don't know earlier is because all it takes is one viral clip of a senator, like maybe not Al Green exactly, but going up and saying, "Hey, dipshit, like you're stupid, this is wrong," and like everyone's like, "Holy crap, that's what I've been thinking for 3 years. Why didn't anyone say that?"
Jasmine Crockett's been doing that. AOC's been doing that.
Yeah, and it's actually polling really, really well with the Democrats.
Yeah, AOC's rising through the ranks.
It's polling well. You just lost a popular vote. What are you talking about?
With the Democrats, it's polling well.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You have to appeal to the general American public. I think the general American public.
I think that's a losing.
We just said we're center right as a public, didn't we?
Yeah, but why are you center right? You're voting center right, or because the messaging at the time is, oh, this specific progressive policy is bad, therefore I'm against that, therefore I'm center right, right? Like, are these people at their core center right people, or do they think that the left and what embodies the left is trans women in sports? And then they're like, well, I'm not that, so I must be center right. Like, I kind of reject this notion that a majority of the
economy and immigration. We know that from the exit polls.
Well, I showed you that wasn't true, especially for the people that voted for Kamala. So,
especially for the people who voted for Kamala, exactly, and she lost.
Yeah, by a very slim margin, a monumental margin, excuse me. But yeah.
Okay, clean sweep.
Okay.
Every swing state.
Let me read some more of these super chats. $2 from Testicle Johnson to say free Luigi.
Yeah, that's another one. I think if someone said if Tim Walz said that, he'd win the election.
He would not.
And that's what I think that truly I'll be very careful. I'll be very careful in the way that I phrase this.
Oh God.
Every single working class person that I have talked to about this, except for one, that was my grandpa. Everyone said, "Yeah, free Luigi," which demonstrates that there is a great possibility here for, I think, potential working class solidarity.
And about healthcare, though, right? Because all of those people have had some big fucking issue with the private healthcare thing, and you don't have to go up and like pardon a murderer because Trump's doing it enough already. You just have to go up and say, "Hey, healthcare sucks right now. I'm going to fix it. I'm going to make it so you don't have these insane premiums." And I don't think Kamala talked about that at all. Maybe she said,
"I think, which was a
we're going to make it
failure."
Yeah, it's like these things matter to people, and like they don't push it at all. They and Wick, you go back to your question. What do they push on? Like just the generic working class. Hey, I'm going to make your life better. And Trump did that amazingly. He did an amazing job. I'm going to make prices cheaper. It doesn't matter how he's going to do it. He's not doing it. It doesn't matter how he's going to fix the economy because he's not doing it. It matters that he's saying it and people believe he's going to say it. So if Democrats do that, and I think I have a much better chance of actually accomplishing it, they'll probably win. But let's see if they do it.
We'll see.
Well, Trump also had 3 years of a very good economy under him, so there's also precedent and historical context.
Yeah, but that was also like the thing about presidents is that like they do kind of, especially if they're only one term, they do kind of inherit the economy of the past president, and I think it takes a bit more than 4 years for things to change.
Oh, so wait, are you saying Trump's economy right now is Biden's fault?
Let's there's nuance.
Well, there was also the pandemic, which was like a huge global disaster.
Well, there are certain things, like the reason I think that the economic forecasts at the very least are poor, and sorry, New York Shady, I just disagree with you. The economic forecasts by all the reputable economists out there are poor because of the tariffs specifically. Without the tariffs, it might be different, right? Other policies that he's made, it might be different, but the tariffs historically just don't.
One thing an economy and investors like is complete uncertainty 2 weeks ahead of time.
That is also another problem. But
As a man who's run a small business, I love it. I love just not knowing what the fuck I'm going to do the next day.
I do want to. I do got a little more super chats I want to read. And then I have a comment on the free Luigi stuff, because I think if we run on that, we lose. But let's keep going. $5 from Artemis Fowl. The price of eggs and gas dropping is considered vibes now, apparently. $5 more from Joe the Mig. Newsom is a clown who got owned by CNN of all places after lying to Kirk about never using Latinx. Yeah, Democrats need to stop lying when they can get. Just don't do it. Okay, it's really bad.
What?
No, just never apologize.
Politicians lie.
If
Yeah,
Gavin Newsom tripled down,
We should
if
do it
Gavin
last.
Just
Newsom tripled
gaslight.
down on Latinx, he would win. If he said, "I'm going to say Latinx," I don't give a fuck. Latinx is cool now. I think unironically that polls better than, oopsie doopsie, sorry,
Also,
Charlie Kirk, I didn't mean
Yeah,
to
he
use
just
this.
needs to
Wait.
slam his dick on the
Doesn't-
table and say, I'm going to call him Latinx. I
Doesn't-
don't care. Like,
No. Latinx polls poorly among Hispanics. What are
I
you
know.
guys talking about?
Oh,
it's
yes,
not-
yes.
No, I agree with you. I'm
That's
saying
not
that
the
it doesn't
question.
matter how dumb the policy is. It matters how you address it with the vibes. And apparently, a lot of the American electorate is really for a machismo man who never admits wrongdoing.
Right,
So
but
it doesn't. You just say, "Nope, I never did that," or
That's
you
something
just
that we
say,
should talk
"It's
about.
actually cool," or it doesn't matter.
It goes back to the baggage, though. Like, Newsom is the epitome of having terrible baggage and bringing it
Well,
into
Trump
some kind of
doesn't.
like reformed. He voted. He won. It doesn't matter. We're arguing about what is wrong with the Democrat Party and why
You're
they're
saying
not.
wait, well, hold on. Again, you're arguing with yourself now. Does it matter or not? Does the baggage of Trump not matter? Apparently, people don't care. So, because
He's selling it
the
correctly.
reason, hold on,
He's
I'll
selling
make
it
this argument.
correctly.
Let me make, exactly. I'll make this argument for you. Democrats actually give a shit when their
for me.
politicians do things that are bad. Trump voters are coalescing around him because of the fucking
right?
vote. So,
Yeah.
name one bad thing about Trump that is not the bump stock ban.
The whole crypto scheme that he's engaged with. I think it's terrible.
Okay, all right, fair
It's
enough.
probably-
Okay,
yeah.
I retract my statement. I didn't think you would say that.
Okay. Charlie, you said you wanted to talk about something?
Masculinity. And mind you, this is not something that I am not sure how important this actually is to people, because this concern has been brought to be by a bunch of random men on the internet, and I don't think that men on Twitch really represent the general male population. So perhaps you all can inform me. I have been told that the Democrats seem gay and effeminate, and that men are not represented by the Democratic Party, and that there seems to be no place for straight white
I can
guys
answer
in
this.
the Democratic Party.
Sure.
Is that a thing? Do we
you want your
need?
panel dancer?
And mind you, did you guys see that there was some scandal? There's some young straight white guy that's like,
Oh,
Harry
Sisson.
Sisson, who had
is
it.
that-
yeah,
that-
yeah,
that
yeah.
whole-
He's
the
getting
whole
canceled for
scandal-
having game, and we should
yeah,
free
but
him
everyone
too.
everyone is saying, okay, well, first of all, he didn't do anything bad. He just is talking to a bunch of women, which is, I mean, what you would expect like a guy in his 20s to be doing, frankly. But also they're saying this is kind of good
the other
optics.
ones. They all felt exclusive. He was kind of being a little bit of a little
He was a
fuckboy
bit of a
about it.
player.
But you know what?
It's
He
not.
has
Look,
campaigned on
here's
women's
the
rights and
thing.
respecting
Here's the
women.
thing. You shouldn't
Well, he
lie to
didn't do
women.
Women should
anything
have the
bad to
right to
women.
But come on.
He didn't do anything
objectified.
bad, though.
Is talking to multiple women at the same time and leading them on disrespecting or respecting them?
I think he fucked.
Okay.
them
I mean, it's
really
not
well.
nice,
here-
but it's not like this.
Okay,
I've
all
done
right,
that to women. I
Hold
like
on.
women as a whole group.
I'm not saying that.
Oh,
it's-
that's right, you're gay.
If you're messaging, this is to the gentleman in my chat. The gentleman in my chat. This is a lesson you're gonna have to learn. If you're messaging a woman and you think you're the only one she's responding to, ha ha ha! You're fucking
No, I
stupid.
agree.
Okay,
I agree.
right?
But
Don't.
everyone does.
Thank you for
Yes.
educating
Everyone
me.
does that. It's
But
like,
you-
especially when you're in your 20s. That's like a young people thing. But
Right,
I
but
think
what is
it
it
looks
messaging
good
then?
for Dems.
I think there's some pretty privilege in the
Literally
chat
no
right now.
idea
A
what
lot of
this
people,
is.
they get one message and they think it's the like, holy crap, I am the most specialist person ever. And I think that's what these women felt, because they're like, holy shit, a famous rich person is talking to me, and then they find out they're one of 12 or something, and it's like, oh wow, you really
Yeah.
misled me.
This
Although I'm
is
sure,
almost another topic. I don't want to get bogged down into this, but I do want to answer your question, right?
Well,
like,
it's
do
about-
Democrats,
it's
if
about
I may,
masculinity.
yes, it's about masculinity problem that Democrats may or may not have with masculinity. I think that the problem is that in a lot of people's minds, rightly or wrongly, they do not feel represented, cared about, or welcome in the Democratic Party. Young men especially. They feel like their problems, when they bring them up, they're like, well, women have it worse, so you just need to sit down right now, right? You just
Yeah.
need to the LGBT stuff, where those are the people who are really being oppressed. right? Sit down while we don't really care about your issues. There's worse issues out there.
This is a perfect example of what I'm talking about, right? So you can say something that is objectively true, like LGBT people are more oppressed than white men. That's just objectively true. Okay, they're dealing with more shit right now. They have more laws that are being leveraged against them. Like they have it harder in general. Not if you look at specific case, maybe it's a little different. Maybe you can find like Pete Buttigieg is doing way better than a homeless white guy, right? But that's objectively true, but that's terrible messaging. That's saying white privilege, it's terrible messaging. Saying, hey, everyone should have healthcare. Hey, everyone should have a better standard of living. That's what you need to do. And that's what, Trump isn't like going out there. He's also not doing id poll, although people in his administration are. He's not saying, I'm going to make it better for white people. He's saying, hey, I'm going to make every American's life better. And that polls really fucking well. So yeah, people feel alienated by the left and being like, oh, sorry, white men need to sit down. Like right now women are speaking. It's like, the reason
it's not a good look.
The reason this is funny to me, if I may, just real quick, the reason this is funny to me is this is next week's topic. I'm currently going to try to start bringing up people next week to talk about specifically this masculinity and do we have
bring me
a problem?
Back on with base?
Is the male loneliness crisis real? Right, and we're going to talk about that. So if any of you want to be on that, you can DM me, but that's a separate topic. But does that answer your question, Charlie, about people bringing up and whether we not have a masculinity crisis in the?
It sounds like it. Yes, because I think there was a couple of years where we were really against guys being dudes.
Yes.
And I don't mean like boys' locker room talk, or I mean a little bit, but I don't mean like people should just be allowed to do awful and evil things.
Thank you for the sub, Badger. Okay, continue, please. Yeah.
But I do think that, there is kind of, a sense where men don't really have wiggle room on the left for anything. Wiggle room or grace.
Well, and
whether
look
that's
at
true or
Harry
not
Sissons,
doesn't matter.
Right, look to Harry Sissons. I'll let you go in a second, Shenandoah. I see you, right? We're going to give you the mic in a second. But look at the reaction by the other influencers in the Democratic Party to Harry Sisson. They all disavowed him. They disavowed him.
Wait, hold on, Wick. Do you know who did
really?
do that though? No, hold on. No, they didn't. They when you say they, Wick, you're talking about what you were complaining about earlier, or the centrist guy your friend was complaining about, is these printed out AI generated like Henry Sisson, Dean Withers, these Democratic mouthpieces that are clearly just taking the marching orders down. Yes, his peers, but specifically he is in this group of these white men for Harris, which was also a little cringe, right? Like I did it unironically, but these people were really owning it, and that is the bad Democratic messaging. It was this like, hey, wow, like look
yes,
how
I'm pointing out how this is bad, and the reason
but when you're saying they
this.
disavowed, it's the same people that he was a part of are disavowing it. These same like people that don't resonate,
the people
they
that
don't feel like real people.
The Democratic Party are putting at the front as their influencers.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Yes, that's why I'm saying it's a problem.
Okay.
Right?
Cool.
Does that make sense? We're not disagreeing.
Well, what I'm saying is, you can look at like these much cooler Democrats in this call who are like,
it's gonna be so much easier to get those kinds of people out in in the coming cultural environment, just because honestly Democrats took such a shock to the system.
Getting laid has got to become left-wing coded. I'm sorry, we can't see
it
that. We already see it working out.
It can be very easy. It used to be.
We cannot.
We used to be the sex, drugs, and rock and roll party. We used to be the sex, drugs, and rock and roll party.
Well, I'm not.
It
I'm
has
not,
to
I'm not
come
a big
back.
fan of drugs.
Well, that's fine. That's fine.
Whatever, nerd.
Yeah, you shut up.
Go to the right wing, nerd.
Also, wait, hang on, Soy Pill. I'm sorry. I just have to ask this.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, but ask your question.
Oh, I thought you said no.
No. You didn't ask a question.
I was gonna add. I was like, when you said you're like a white dudes for Harris, I don't mean this to be rude, but do you have like some kind of like Mexican lighting on? Like what?
Mexican light? Oh no, no. And well, no.
I don't mean that in a rude way.
Hold on. Look, earlier. No. You're right. You're 100% correct. No, let me talk.
Mexico filter.
Earlier, for everyone in the chat early before the stream started, pointed out that Shen kind of looks like an Aryan propaganda poster, and he has now confirmed this by pointing out that I do have a quarter Latino heritage. And
excuse me, it's Latinx lighting.
He sniffed out that physiognomy just like that. All right, so you got me. And the closer you get to the border, the more yellow it gets. So right now it's orange. So yeah.
Yeah, once you cross over, it's like the actual filter kicks in, and you're like,
This is a good a showcase though of we have to stop being so goddamn prudish about jokes.
Yeah.
About race, about sex, about religion.
No, that was
about all
intentional.
this. Yes,
I
no,
was
that was a good
modeling what a
demonstration.
Democrat should be like.
Yes.
I was modeling it, and you are welcome for this teaching.
Thank you.
We
Shane.
have to get
That's usually
slightly
right.
more edgy. We have to get edgy again. Like
Yeah.
it's just yeah.
We got to
Those are
be
my
able to say
thoughts.
retard without anyone being like, ew.
I
That's
watched a talk by
marginalizing.
like a very like hardcore left Marxist professor at UC Irvine that was like, I've been saying retarded again, and I love it. We
We're
need
bringing
to
it
say
back.
that again.
We're bringing back retards.
I feel like it has to. It's where it needs to go.
It's not
Yeah,
controlling
like-
speech. That's what it is.
Well, okay.
No, I agree.
Yeah, we
You know,
shouldn't deport people for protesting or whatever. I agree.
Yeah, this is also
Not
like
a
the
Yeah.
really other
I don't
lovely
care.
thing is like because like Republicans are going to really overextend themselves and they're going to do their own speech policing, which allows for Democrats to basically go back to civil liberties. I was going to say, every single time you ask me like, what should we be running on? I think one of the really big ticket items should be civil liberties. I think that's going to be a really big deal over the next 4 years, honestly. I think that's a good messaging thing. And that was always a popular Democrat messaging thing. And I think like a lot of Republicans are going to erode some of them. It doesn't even necessarily have to be like, oh my God, like specifically this hyper
Just the
tiny
First
minority
Amendment.
of non-binary people.
Yeah, just the
Yeah,
first
exactly. It could just be like, hey, you know what? I don't want gay people to get sent to Guantanamo Bay. I think gay people are okay. Like maybe. I don't know. I think it's just an idea.
Has Trump deported any citizens? Just curious.
We don't know because he hasn't
Just legal
followed due
residents.
process,
Oh, so you're-
so
you're
nobody
speculating.
knows.
Yeah.
So you're
Yeah.
speculating that he
Uh,
has.
And also,
people
I
with
said
green
Guantanamo
cards.
Bay.
People with green cards have definitely been
legal residents
So
are
at-
having their civil rights violated. That's what's happening right now.
So applicants that want to
No.
become
As far
a
as we
US
know.
No,
citizen are being
ones who have been
granted-
Legal
accepted.
residents, green card
Right.
holders.
That
who
is
are
an
here
Yes.
applicant to be a citizen.
No, it's okay. Oh my God, no.
If
it's
you
not.
have a green card, you're a permanent resident.
Right, and you're still applying for U.S. citizenship.
you
are
may
not
or may
US
not be.
So a green card is a document that allows a person to live and work in the United States permanently.
Okay.
Yes.
Are they a
And it's
citizen?
So they're allowed to live and work in the U.S. permanently.
Right, but they're also allowed to be taken
They're
into
They're
custody
not
without a
applicants.
charge.
They're there
Violated.
permanent. It's a legal
You-
document that says you can be here and work here permanently.
No.
But
Do you think we should be allowed to do
non-citizens,
whatever the hell we want to
non-citizens,
non-citizens?
no, this is the law. Non-citizens can be detained without being charged. This is just a law. It is a fact. So
Well, because
what
Trump
outside of
activated
that?
law.
What
Previously, that
outside
wasn't
of
the
that? No, that's not true. What outside of that law has
Hold
been
on.
done by Trump?
No,
Have any
that's not true.
citizens
New
been
York
deported?
Shade. New York Shade. Do you? We have rulings on this, right? Supreme Court rulings.
Sure.
Green card holders, right, have civil rights. Not the same
Yeah.
civil rights as a citizen, but they have entitlement to due process.
Yes.
And
They are
sure, but-
protected by the Fourth Amendment, the Fifth
what you were
Amendment,
saying
the
was-
First
If what
Amendment.
Shade was saying was true, Trump would not have to be going through the courts trying to invoke the illegal
Yeah,
Alien
the-
Act. He wouldn't
the-
have to
again,
be trying to
the
fight
reason
these
he-
things.
if
would
I may-
just do it because
yeah,
it would be the
The
precedent. but it's
reason he
not.
has to invoke the illegal, the Alien Enemies Act is because the law normally prevents him from simply
That's
deporting
what I was saying.
people. Yes, exactly.
Like it wasn't
You're
the
right.
status quo.
Yeah.
He
Wait, but-
invoked the law and changed the rules. In the Biden administration, you couldn't just be like sent to El Salvador with no fucking trial. You at the very least had to have a hearing in front of an immigration judge.
Wait, but-
at the very least,
Can you confirm that they are not going to be receiving a hearing?
some already haven't. Some
Right,
already have
but-
just been
but
like
will
literally
they?
shipped
But
off.
will they? But
There
will
are
they?
some that
they?
are already in a different country
Do you want
who
me to
have
say- They
had
can
their
be
civil
detained.
rights
They
violated
can be
for no
detained.
reasons.
They can be
They're-
detained.
they're in
they
a
can be
different
detained without
country.
charge. They
Yeah,
can be
in a
detained without
different
charge.
It is
country.
already been done.
Is there a
It is
law
already-
against that?
Yes. You can't just
Where
you can't
is
just
it?
say,
Yeah,
hey,
you-
Oh, yeah,
where,
where is it?
oh my god, do you
The
want me to
Fourth
cite you the
Amendment or the
specific-
Fifth Amendment, one of the fucking amendments, right?
Which one are you thinking of? No, you can't.
Average
Like
Republican
there
knowing the
are
Constitution.
people that are being deported who have no charges against them, who are legal residents,
We're
who have like a
non-citizens.
tattoo that have tattoos of like a soccer team or some shit, and it's like this is our immigration's way of identifying whether or not you're in Trendo
That's not
Aragua
true.
or whatever. And you can literally
It is
look the
true.
story
Yeah,
up.
just
Please
look it
Google
up.
it.
Right. And
This
okay,
is-
so
this
this
is
is
just-
the whole optics thing again, because the way that this is interpreted by the general population is that you are also defending the actual criminals and gangbangers.
No,
gang
I'm
members,
defending
which is
the
the
innocent
vast
person who's being
majority,
deported.
which is the vast majority of the people that are currently
I
being
think most
deported to
Americans believe in
Venezuela.
trials.
Do you know the reason
Even
we have
for
innocent
criminals.
They're
until
going to
proven
get
guilty?
trials. They're going
They
to
have
get
not
trials.
gotten trials.
Our entire
They're
legal
getting
system,
trials.
our entire legal, they're
Canadian
not. They're in El
actors randomly
Salvador, and our
detained?
entire fucking legal system is built on the idea that we should let 10 criminals go free if it means that we don't lock up one innocent person, and that's why we have the
Citizenship,
presumption
sure.
of innocent. God, Are we just going to play this fucking pedantic game where
Yeah.
we
Yes,
I don't know. I don't know.
There's nuance here.
anyone
There's
in this
nuance.
country who is not a permanent citizen is somehow has zero civil rights? Is that what you're implicating?
That's
or
not what I'm
implying?
saying at all.
Okay,
I'm
then
saying
why
that
the fuck do you keep saying
if
it?
you are suspected to be supporting a terrorist organization, it is very clear in the law that for non-citizens you are allowed to be detained without being charged. That it
And
is.
sent
That is
to,
what it
a
is.
foreign dictatorship.
Supporting no, he's talking about
No,
Nabi
that's
Khalil
just
again,
not
and
true.
if
Oh, okay.
supporting a
Okay.
terrorist organization, as in I am protesting against Israel, is not the same fucking thing, and you know it.
Yeah.
It's so
No.
ridiculous.
He was protesting in support of Hamas, a deemed terrorist organization.
Can you show us a
by the
clip of
United
him
States
supporting
America.
Hamas?
Which is also the
He was handing out flyers
elected
on.
government of.
He was
Gaza.
handing out
Sure,
flyers
show
that
us
were
a-
authorized by Hamas
No,
in association
he was
with the
not.
student body. That yes, he was.
His
Yes, he was.
the only thing, right, that people could
The only
say
thing.
is that the people who he was associated with were doing that. They have a lot
It
of
would be
people
like-
things
He
that
was
the
a
people
representative for the
associated with were
organization.
doing.
It
but he
sure
was
would be nice to have a
representative.
trial to see if any of this is actually true. That would be
He's
nice.
getting a trial.
Yeah, wouldn't
He's
a
getting
trial be
trial.
cool?
No, the only
He's
reason he's
getting
getting
a
a
trial.
trial. Hold on. The only reason he's getting a trial is because his lawyer put in a habeas corpus
you have evidence of that?
declaration to get him that trial. They were trying
have
to
evidence of
deport
that?
him without a trial.
Yeah, they were trying their damnedest, and it just became a national news story. So they're giving this one guy a trial to give people a bone. But
Okay,
other
we
people
got a
might lose that
But gang, it is
after a lot of effort.
Can I
It
shade
is-
one
After a lot
question
of
before you wrap up, please?
okay. One question before I wrap up.
Shade, if do you think BLM is a terrorist organization, and if so, would someone, if I was a green card holder and I supported them, should I be deported without due process?
I think it should have been deemed a terrorist organization.
Okay, and so therefore, do you think I should have been deported if I said I think Black Lives Matter?
As long as you got due process, which all these people getting deported will be getting. And if
Okay,
you're a citizen,
so
by the way,
you're a
for
fucking
sure.
ridiculous fascist who wants to deport people for
Oh,
supporting
okay.
BLM.
Okay.
Yeah, well,
Holy
I'm
shit!
not sure if that's like a free speech thing, man. Like I mean,
Well,
like
no.
I'm sorry.
I'm talking about
sorry.
the riot
I think that like people have free
destruction.
speech and
Wait.
should just get deported.
Should a non-citizen be allowed to do or participate in billions of private property damage of Americans?
No.
and
Is that-
be
is
allowed
that
to
what I
live in the
said?
country?
Supported him.
Yes.
Is that what I said? Did I say I support BLM versus I went and I rioted and I blew up a fucking Target? Those are obviously not the same
Yeah,
fucking
that's
thing,
a
dude.
big
Yeah,
gap.
those
man.
are
Wait,
very
but-
different things. Those are
But is Trump deporting everybody that supports Palestine?
No.
Okay.
some green card holders.
Yeah, he's doing it to
specific
some green
guy.
card holders whose only crime, the only crime is their viewpoint, which again lies in the rights of their First Amendment. But this is
How do you
again
know that if the evidence hasn't
I
come
like the
forward
First
yet?
Amendment.
because that's what the government has said they're doing.
The White
can be
House has
charged.
literally come out and
What?
said there's
They-
not an actual charge happening. Like you're arguing with the people that you're defending right now. It's
They don't
fucking
need to be
ridiculous.
charged. They're non-citizen.
Oh my
Yes, that you do. That
But then
we
you
have
don't.
Trump
No,
said
you
he
laws.
don't.
believed in due process.
We have
So, like,
laws.
I
Make up your
believe in
mind.
due process for American citizens, and I believe
So
that
you
to be
don't
true
believe in
for
due
Could I if I saw an illegal immigrant, if I saw an
There
illegal
are-
immigrant, I'm not talking a green card holder, illegal immigrant. Would it be okay if I just cut off their fingers?
I was gonna ask the same question. Great minds think alike.
Yeah,
I
what
cut off their
rights do
fingers?
they have?
Yeah, like if they don't have a right to a trial, like can I just like fucking shoot them for fun?
They have the right to the First
Can we
Amendment
hunt
like
them?
Americans, but there are specific exceptions that are applicable to non-citizens.
Can we put them on an island, perhaps, and then like we
No.
all and my buddies, me and Soy Pill and our Aryan friend here up here, can we all get our hunting rifles and go hunt them for sport?
Okay, maybe I shouldn't have said that.
Why-
We don't have to make these ridiculous hypotheticals. He said he
Yeah,
would support
this is
people
ridiculous.
supporting Black Lives Matter who are not citizens getting deported, which is the most fucking ridiculous thing I've
W-
ever heard.
with some
That is-
nuance.
that is
With
pretty
some
What's the
nuance.
nuance? What's the
If
nuance?
they were deemed a terrorist organization, which they are not,
Okay,
But
let's
you
say they
want
did,
them to
which
be.
he wanted to be. Trump wants to say, "Hey, BLM is a terrorist organization." So past that point, if
Wait,
they say,
wait.
"I support BLM," which
What's
is
the
what this
definition
guy
of
said, he said,
terrorism?
"I
What's the
support
definition of terrorism?
committing some sort of violent act in further of your political movement."
Did BLM not do that?
What is BLM?
The Black Lives Organization.
Okay. Did the BLM, was there a coordinated effort from the organization to say go here and riot, or did a bunch of people riot in the same time that people protested against a specific thing? It's a bunch. It's
With
like
BLM
millions
shirts
of
on.
people.
Because
Yeah,
BLM was
whatever.
that was a slogan. That was a slogan long before
Is the
that
Trump
was
campaign
an
a terrorist organization
organization.
because of January 6th? No, obviously not. I would never make that claim because that's ridiculous. Although those people are terrorists, I'm not going to say that the Trump
I would make
party
that claim.
itself is terroristic. That's not the same thing. And so
I
to say,
would apply the same standard.
okay, good. So BLM is not a terrorist organization?
No, I would say the violent January 6th insurrectionists or what so-called
Oh, they are
insurrectionists
terrorists.
are terrorists. Yes.
So we should deport any of them who are non-citizens, and the ones who are citizens, or anyone who says who's a non-citizen in this country right now who said I support what happened on January 6th should be deported.
No, not I support. It's providing material assistance.
What did Khalil do?
Providing material assistance
What
to a terrorist
material
organization.
assistance did
He handed out flyers on behalf of the student body that was literally getting mandates from Hamas militants. Like,
Okay, so if I retweet I love BLM, should I be deported if I'm a non-citizen?
no,
Why? I'm materially supporting them. I'm spreading their message.
no, I think
I'm
you're.
Hold on,
retweeting their
let's be
flyer.
more specific. Hold on, let me try.
I'm handing out a
New York
BLM
Shade. Hold
flyer.
on, stop. New York Shade. Say I was a non-citizen, green card holder, non-citizen, right? And I retweet the group who protested at Columbia University campus. They say we should divest from Israel, and I retweet that. Should I be deported?
No, because that's not material support for Hamas.
I mean, it's literally defunding the country that is fighting Hamas, which is helping Hamas's war effort. So you could very easily make an argument that it's helping Hamas.
Yeah, but it's not practically.
It's literally practically helping Hamas, because the opposing side of the war that is happening right now will have less money to have bombs to kill them. It is helping Hamas.
If you are a non-citizen and you are providing material support for a terrorist organization, you should be
I'm
deported.
not really
point
seeing
blank,
where
period.
I'm doing some research right now. I'm not really seeing like where he
didn't.
provided
Spoiler.
material
No.
support to Hamas. He was an intern for UNRWA at one point, but that's
Yeah,
not
they're
a
real clean
terrorist-
organization.
I mean,
You
it's
ever volunteered for the Trump campaign?
Have I volunteered for the Trump? No, I have not.
Okay.
I'm fairly certain.
To be honest, like, as I said again, it would be sure as hell nice if and he is getting a trial, thank God, because of the public pressure. But like, without that, can you imagine? Like, the facts of this case were not at all established. Nobody had any evidence that he was like giving money to Hamas or something. Also, why aren't pamphlets protected under the First Amendment? That's like a classic. Yeah, that's the press. I was gonna say that's like a classic.
There is
freedom
an
of speech.
exception. You guys, there's an exception for non-citizens
There is not.
on the first.
Not on First Amendment
Yes,
shit.
there is.
There is not.
It's free speech for everyone. I'm sorry.
Material
We
support
have
for a terrorist
okay. There was
organization?
What material
Are you
support?
serious?
there was
If it was given
He was
them money,
handing out-
I'd be like, get the guy out.
you
of
can
here.
have
if
you
you
can have a
funding
non-citizen
Hamas, I
and
would agree with
an
you.
immigrant who came here
Okay,
legally.
hold on,
They
hold
can
on,
get
hold
up
on,
and say, "I support getting rid of Israel, and nothing should happen to them." That's their
Okay,
First
so
Amendment right.
If Mahmoud Khalil supported or was handing out flyers that supported
If
the
he was,
messaging of
if
ISIS
he was,
or
Which there's
Al
no
Qaeda,
mention of, by the way. I literally
also
cannot
protected
find
by freedom.
any
yeah, he
mention.
Not-
hasn't
not-
passed out
not
flyers.
non-citizens.
He didn't pass out any of the flyers supporting Hamas.
he
But
was
even
a
if he did, it would
representative for a
still
student
not-
organization that literally espoused the political will of Hamas. Like, he's a representative
What part of
organization.
There's a
that was
huge-
for
That's
Hamas.
not.
Political will
No,
of
There's a
that's
huge
still
difference
free
between
speech,
agreeing
dude. That's
with
still
them
free
and
speech.
He was
being
a
an
representative,
agent of
a
Hamas.
representative, an agent for an
This is
organization
so vague.
representing
I don't like
Hamas.
Yeah,
It
if
is
it's
so
agent
vague.
separation away from Hamas, then you should definitely be deported. Apparently,
Okay.
so like you support an
This
org
is-
that maybe
Yes,
vaguely
as
supports
a
some
we
non-citizen,
have-
you should get the fuck out of the country
Okay.
if you're supporting a
Jesus
terrorist organization.
We have.
I would
we
gladly
have-
switch you in Khalil's places.
Okay, okay.
sure.
We
I'm a
have
citizen,
we
so you
have
can't.
we have gone off the deep end. There's a
Not
lot
that
to
that's
talk
office.
about. I love you all, but I don't want to. I'm not Hamas.
love
So I
me?
won't hold you hostage on my panel. Okay, right? So we won't do that today. I want to give all of
Thank
you
Wick.
a
But you will
chance.
conscript us.
I will. I want to give
fascists.
all of you a chance to tell people who you are, where they can find you, and gang, I have links to all these lovely individuals, and thank you all for coming, including J Mac, who's no longer with us. He didn't die or anything; he just had to do something.
Passed away.
Right?
Extreme.
But anyway,
Phrasing.
all the links are in my
High
YouTube
stakes.
description. You can click on those links if you've enjoyed this show. Okay, if you've enjoyed, well, and I'm going to give them all closing statements. Don't worry. But if you enjoyed this conversation, which I did, I thought it was great. You hit that like button, you hit that subscribe button, you hit that follow button if you're watching on Twitch or on Kick or what have you. And yeah, we got more stuff coming up. Tomorrow, we're going to be having Claire Lemon, the founder of Quillette. We're going to have Tracing Woodgrains. We're going to have Renee DeResta, who wrote, what is her book? Invisible Rulers, The People Who Turn Lies into Reality. And it's an excellent book, right? You should all go check it out. We're going to have her on. We're going to have Not So Erudite, and we're going to have Eucharist, personal friend of mine. And we're going to be talking about the same subject, but from a more professional standpoint. This was the normies, and now we're going to have the professors and stuff like that tomorrow. So check it out, 6 p.m. Eastern tomorrow. Tune on in. Let's start with Soy Pill, and we'll end with Charlie. Soy Pill, closing thoughts.
yeah, just to supplement what you just said, it's criminal how few subscribers you have, Wick. So everyone in my chat and everyone in Wick's chat better fucking subscribe, all right? Because I'm tired of not seeing him get what he deserves, which is lots more attention, especially for the people he has on. It actually makes me upset.
He just
genuinely.
called me like nothing, like a little guy, right? Like you got nothing. You're just a small.
It's the opposite. It's this dissonance, and me and Shen were talking about this, where it's like you have these like the most high profile people on, and somehow like the audience like of subscriptions just not there. It doesn't make sense, and it makes me mad at the audience for not subscribing. So that's my last little thing there. But yeah, look, the Democrats have been feckless and limp-wristed. Chuck Schumer is a coward who won't actually try to do anything. His plan right now is pretty much to do nothing. It pisses me off. I think we need a better message. I think we need to appeal to wider swaths of people. I think we don't need to go and focus on little niche things. That doesn't mean abandon LGBT people. Obviously not. Jesus Christ. It means don't get into the nitty gritty of whether or not we need to put they them pronouns in our LinkedIn profiles. It's, hey, how do we make these people's lives better? How do we make sure their lives are not being stripped of the rights that they deserve? And how do we make sure our civil rights aren't being violated so that more people resonate with a message that appeals to a mass of people? I think what you've heard from the right today was very indicative of what's going on, which is if we just focus on how the Democrats are ripping themselves apart, we don't have to talk about how big of a fuck up our administration is. So for the love of God, call these people out for the big fuck ups they're doing, for their violations of civil rights, for the illegal deportations, for trying to supplant the powers of Congress. This is ridiculous. It's fucking crazy. Let's get our people out there shouting this down. Thank you guys for joining, and I had a very good time talking to everyone.
Always a pleasure, Soy Pill. You can check him out. I got a link to his stuff in my YouTube descriptions. Click on that. Shenandoah, thank you for being here. I think you were a wonderful guest, by the way. You did not fuck it up. So go ahead.
I tried my best.
And
really
he
did.
clocked me perfectly.
True.
So
I did, yep. I know. I got that big old Aryan sniffer.
Closing thoughts. Tell people where to find you.
I called it. Anyway. Fuck you, Soy Pill. I don't know how to follow that up. That was a really good summary of a really that was like most of my points pretty much. I guess I'll keep it simple for the sake of brevity, because who doesn't love a good brevity? My principal problem with the Democratic Party is that their messaging is absolutely fucked, and I would just love to see way more fighters in this Democratic Party. I don't want any more cuck Schumers. I want some goddamn warriors. That's what I want out of my Democratic Party. And yeah, they could go left or a little bit right on social issues. I don't even think that's going to matter. I think what's really going to define the Democratic Party in the next 4 years is if they capitulate or if they give it their goddamn all and fight till the end. So that's what I'm fucking praying for. Thanks for having me on.
Hey.
It was great.
No, thank you for being here. Check him out. I got a link to his stuff in the YouTube description, so click on that link, give him a follow and all that. Appreciate you. New York Shade, please.
Yeah, no, thank you everybody for the time today. Really doubling down on Soy Pill's comments. Give Wick a follow. He's completely underappreciated in the space and has.
Oh, come on! You can suck my dick later. Come on, get to your closing. Yeah.
All right, I'll see you in 5 minutes. But look, at the end of the day, the Democrats they have an authenticity problem, and they need to be able to actually sell policy. And what we saw in the last election is a policy framework that is completely misaligned with the general interest of the American people. So if they can fix both of those issues, they have a pathway back. But everything we've seen right now is them doubling down on everything that's really been failing them. And look, I think competition is a core benchmark of capitalism. Competition breeds excellence, and if we let Republicans get too unwieldy, there's going to be issues, and I'm happy to admit that. So it is in our best interest to have a strong strong and competitive Democratic Party, and it's my hope that Democrats are able to introspect and right size rather than doubling down on everything that's gone wrong.
Okay, thank you for being here. I have a link to his socials and his channel in my YouTube description, and I really do appreciate your perspective, so thank you for being here. Last but certainly not least, first-time guest on my channel as well. Hopefully not last time. Hope we didn't throw her off completely and scare her off. Charlie,
no, I had a blast. Thank you, Wick, for having me on. I'm always surprised when I'm invited to these things because I'm not sure if my internet presence necessarily aligns with debate panels, but I had so much fun. This was a lot of fun. I liked it. Would love to come back. Closing thoughts. I think that honestly, I feel like the Dems might not even have to do anything because I anticipate that the economy is gonna. So they could
do nothing, but that means, more fuck ups in the future. I agree with Shenandoah, Soy Pill, and New York Shade. I think they need to double down. I think they need to fight. And yeah, those are my thoughts.
Well,
thank you for having me.
No, thank you for being here. Really appreciate you, gang. Her stuff is in my YouTube description. Click on it if you want. So we're gonna rate out Not So Erudite. So what you're gonna tell her is this is a hate raid. And tell her we'll see you tomorrow, but make it really weird, okay? Make it as weird as possible. That's what we're gonna do.
Oh,
no,
Everyone
not
go
that
type
weird.
one.
Don't
Type
be
one in the
that
chat. Everyone
weird.
type 1 in the chat.
no,
when
no,
you
no,
donate.
no, no, no,
Okay,
no.
but anyway,
First-
I'll see you guys later. Wait, bye-bye, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.